Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the two mics, and I'm going to give you old energy boy MG to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Porky Parry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the two mics right here on talkSPORT. The fans have talked the talk about last night's game at Wembley. Now it's time to walk the walk. Just 67,000 people turned up to watch England beat Slovakia 2-1, and the reason is now clear. Gareth Southgate's style of play has turned off the spectators, and it's only going to get worse. The Wembley experience is a nightmare. You can't get in, you can't get out, and it costs a fortune. We want to hear your stories of a day out at England's flagship stadium, and I'm sure they won't be positive. 08717 22 3344. Coming up later in the show, we're talking Gareth Bale and Antonio Conte, not necessarily in the same sentence. Plus, it's Ask Porky, your chance to have a problem solved or a question answered live on air. Just send them to the Two Mics Twitter account, at the Two Mics. We'll post them on our Facebook page. You know it makes sense. You're listening to the Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on talkSPORT. This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Yes, good morning, Mike, and the usual old drivel that you bang on about
What
Wembley.
drivel?
You
What
know.
do you mean drivel?
Well, I mean, the crowd that England got last night would actually be a bumper record crowd in about 95% of the countries in this world.
Doesn't matter.
So
It's
for you to start putting the boot in on England fans again, just because you don't go to football matches,
let me give you some,
it's somewhat of an irony.
Let me give you, never mind irony, let me give you some statistics then, right? Okay, yes, England are the most watched national team. Do you know who the second most watched national team are?
I believe it's the Congo.
The Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is not quite the same thing, which tells you all you need to know about international football and why international football is not very interesting. 67,000 people at Wembley, by the way, is the lowest crowd for an England game in 3 years.
Yeah, okay, but it's still a very good crowd.
Well, it may be a very good crowd to you, but Wembley is, as you well know from your time at the FA, set up to be a money-making machine, okay?
Well, that's the general purpose of business.
They're renting it, but they had to borrow an awful lot of money in order to build Wembley, right? They're still paying off that particular money in those loans, right? In order for them to make that money work and to make Wembley work, they need to get more and more people into the stadium.
Yeah.
If it's going to drop down to 60,000, 50,000, that's not going to work. And they've now loaned the stadium out to Tottenham, right? Tottenham fans hate going there. Tottenham hate playing there.
Actually rented the stadium
I'm
out
going to go as far as to say, that's what I said.
No, you said loaned.
Well, they've loaned it, they've rented it, it's the same thing, right? Yeah. They're getting money back from Tottenham,
That's right.
So they've turned it into a money-making enterprise. It's not working for England, it's not working for the fans. 20 minutes was the time wasted for an awful lot of the fans to get into the stadium last night. Many of them didn't see the first 20 minutes of the game, which in my view would actually be...
drone on about
I'm just giving you some figures. I know you don't understand figures or facts because you just talk off the cuff and make stuff up as you go along. Bottom line is, they can't get in fast enough, they can't get out fast enough. It takes about 2 hours to get out, to get back to the tube at the end of the day. The Wembley situation is a disaster. There's nothing nice there to do. There's nowhere to go.
It's utter rubbish.
It's a complete white elephant.
The Wembley experience
Do you know what it's time to do? It's time to take football back around the country. Yeah. It's time to take the national team around places like Anfield, Old Trafford, St James's Park, and the rest of it. I think it's ridiculous to keep playing these games at Wembley.
Load of drivel, mate.
Not drivel at all.
No, you may have been listening to my very good mate Adrian Bevington this morning.
I wasn't I wasn't aware he was on.
He had an outstanding spot on the breakfast show this morning. Yeah, lit the airwaves up.
No, I think I was still asleep, actually.
And of course, he was reviewing the situation when Wembley was closed. Yeah. And because I travelled a lot with Adrian in those days,
Because you were working for the FA?
No, I wasn't. No. I was working for talkSPORT. But
why were you working with Adrian Bevington?
Well, because he is a big cheese in the FA. And
so you were sucking up to the FA?
No, I'm a big cheese in the broadcasting world. And, of course, it was by mutual interest that we worked together.
So you were working hand in glove with the organisation you were supposed to be critical of? Is that what you're telling me?
Not at all.
Typical quisling behaviour from Porky Parry.
But let me tell you this. Trailing all over the country to England football matches is not the answer.
Hang on. You're trailing around the country. If you live in Liverpool, you're trailing around the country to come to Wembley. If England's coming to you, you're happier. If England's coming to Old Trafford and you're in Manchester, you're not trailing all over the country.
Well, you are if you're an England fan in Manchester and the next game is in Derby or Newcastle or on the south coast of Southampton.
Hang on.
You are trailing around the country.
No, because you get a chance to go and see your national side, and it drums up interest. It gets better performances out of the players because players like to go to their home city and play football.
No, they don't. They couldn't care less about that.
That's not true.
Players like to play at Wembley.
People will tell you. No, players don't like playing at Wembley.
Yeah,
First players hate playing at Wembley.
Well, that's club football.
It's a curse for them, all right?
That's club football.
They can't win a game there.
That's not international football.
The point is that people around the country, and you're always banging on about how you love the north of England, right?
Yes, I do.
Why do you want to starve them of national football?
I'm not starving them. The National Stadium is in London.
Why do they have to come to Wembley to watch England play?
All right, where's the National Stadium of Germany?
Where? I think it's now in Berlin, isn't it?
No, they haven't got one.
What do you mean they haven't got one?
Well, they haven't got one. They just don't have a national stadium. They play a lot of the games at the Alliance.
And they're the world champions.
Yeah, the world champions.
So you don't need a national stadium to become a world champion.
Well, the other thing is that unless you've got a national stadium, you don't have a focal point for all your football. Where's the national stadium in Italy?
I don't know. I presume it's in Milan, isn't it?
No, they haven't got one.
They haven't got one
either. Where's the national stadium in Spain?
So are you going to tell me for the rest of the show that all of the successful teams in Europe, like Germany, like Italy, like Spain, haven't got a national stadium? Then why have we got one then?
We've got one because
we're run by a bunch of old grizzly men in blazers who think that running things that way is good.
I think you have to have a national stadium. You say that there's nothing good about Wembley.
There isn't anything good about Wembley.
You have very rarely experienced the Wembley experience.
I've been to Wembley about half a dozen times.
Yeah,
right?
I've been to Wembley about 100 times.
Well, yeah, I know, but you only remember about one of them because the rest of the time you carried out a stretcher. The bottom line is, right?
See, just ridiculously empty insults. I've spent most of the visits.
I was there with you when you insulted the head of the Ukrainian FA by telling him that the Ukraine could never hold a football tournament because it was full of people on carts and horses.
No, I never said that.
Yes, you did.
No, that's an outrageous thing to say.
That's
the
what
point
you said.
is, 80% or 85% of the games I've ever attended at Wembley, I have been on the broadcasting gantry.
Have you?
Doing my job.
Well, why didn't you know where it was the last time we went up there?
Because we weren't doing it from there, were we?
I don't know.
It from another box.
I don't know.
Yeah,
well, you took us up there, though.
I did. Took you up there because I knew where it was because,
but we weren't doing it from there.
The empty-headed producer we were with that day didn't even know where we were broadcasting from. So that's the answer to that one.
Yes, indeed.
But for the rest of the time...
Wembley is expensive. It's hard to get to.
Of course it's expensive
hard to
because
get
it's
out
quality.
Of. Well, it's not quality. It's ridiculously overpriced. It's ridiculously difficult to get into. Well, how are you going to defend the idea that they got it all wrong last night? They got loads of fans delayed going in because they didn't open enough...
security in an increasingly dangerous world.
Incorrect. They didn't open enough turnstiles. They knew because they hadn't sold enough tickets that they should only open about 2/3 of the turnstiles. They made a miscalculation. The place is run by people who don't know what they're doing. When you come out of the place at the end of a game, you have to stand in line for an hour to get back on the tube. It's a hopeless entity, and there's no point in using it anymore for international football.
It's not. If you spill 95,000 people out onto the streets outside any venue, whether it be a sports stadium, whether it be in a rock concert hall, whether it be a political rally, it's going to take you time to get home.
Because there's lots of different ways of going from other places, but from Wembley, there's only one way to go.
Well, I'll tell you what, getting out to Goodison Park, right, which I do on a regular basis, is not easy when everybody spills out, when 40,000 people are spilling out.
You're not standing stationary in a queue, are you? You can always walk somewhere.
Well, yeah, of course you can walk somewhere. What I'm saying is, if you've got a huge glut of people in any situation, of course you're going to have some patience and tolerance to get yourself away from that location. What about rock concerts? Exactly the same thing happens.
Well, why don't you give out the number and see whether people agree with you? Because I'm sure they won't. I'm sure most people who go to Wembley have a terrible experience.
Training around
and
the
it's
stadium,
a pretty awful nightmare.
Playing at places like, for instance, Southampton, which is a lovely ground, lovely club ground, but it's not suitable really for international football because of the capacity. That's true of most club grounds, except Old Trafford.
Yeah,
that's why the majority of the England games
it's more interesting for the
played
fans.
At Old Trafford.
You spent most of yesterday having a go at the way that England play. They're not an attractive team to go and watch. In order to make it more attractive for the fans, they need to go and play around the country again. I think that makes perfect sense.
That doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, give us a call, please. I shall give you the non-mangled mouth version of the number. The number, of course, to call us here and talk to MG and myself about this situation is 08717 22344. We want you to call us, please, because I stand up for Wembley because it's something we should be very proud of in this country. It is the world's top football stadium. It's one of the world's iconic buildings. The arch that surrounds the top of it makes it look like something absolutely special. We should all be very proud of it and not trying to sort of say,
you're still
play somewhere else.
You're still in the pocket of the FA. Always have been. You're incapable of having an independent thought.
Very few grounds grounds in this country have the capacity for a full attendance to an England game. So why deprive people who want to go and see England by putting a game on in a stadium that only takes about 40,000 people?
They won't.
When Wembley's double that number.
Well, because you don't need to get loads and loads of people into a place
If
that it's
they want
very
to
hard
watch
to
it,
get
you
to.
do.
No, on a Monday night, who's going to travel to Wembley apart from people who live in London?
Anybody who makes arrangements to go and see England.
Absolute rubbish. And you know perfectly well too, that whenever they have the FA Cup semi-finals held there, which I think is also a travesty, that people who have to travel, they sometimes have two teams playing from the north of England on a Sunday afternoon,
I would agree
and
with
they
that.
can't get back home on a train.
I would agree with that.
It's
but
absolute
that's
nonsense.
club football. We're talking here international football.
I'm saying the
last night.
whole of the Wembley deal is a complete and utter ridiculous situation. It needs to change because it doesn't work for the bulk of football fans in this country,
It does.
whether they're national football fans or whether they're club football fans.
And I've got to say, a lot was asked of me about the crowd the other night. The crowd were brilliant tonight. At a goal down, the crowd really stayed with us, and that was a huge importance to the team.
OK, folks, you are, of course, listening to the Two Mics. We're on talkSPORT, and we are with Wicks. Now, Wicks have lowered the price on Blue Circle general purpose cement. Get 25 kilograms for just £3.79 each when you buy 3 or more.
That was Pep Southgate there talking about the crowd.
Yeah.
He's getting some great support here, by the way, from the, as you would call them, the great unwashed.
No,
Mark says this,
I would never call our audience a great
Wembley
unwashed.
looks cheap and costs a fortune. Look at the stadiums in China. Terrible bars, awful transport. Takes 2 hours to get back home to southwest London.
Well,
Bilko says, don't like Wembley. It's soulless. I preferred the Millennium Stadium or thought it was better when England played around the country.
Yeah.
And Ian says, think how much money could have gone into developing football, not developing Wembley as a national stadium. Waste of money, Porky talking rubbish.
But then you've got a stateless national team. Where would you play if you didn't have a Wembley?
Well, as you said, Germany, Italy and Spain don't have a national
That's
stadium,
right.
right? 3 very successful national teams. Chris says...
Well, I think that's a big mistake for them.
Well, hang on. Parry lists several reasons not to have a national stadium and then concludes, I think we have to have one. There's no evidence to prove that having a national stadium does any good at all.
Well, I didn't say it did, but I think in terms of your game and your credibility around the world as a football association...
Oh, come on. Do you think the FA has any credibility around the world?
Yes, of course.
Are you having a laugh?
No,
the FA is the laughing stock of the football world.
That's rubbish.
And the proof of that is the fact that the World Cup has never been given back to Britain since it was here in 1966.
And we all know why that's happened, don't we?
Because the FA have made a complete dog's breakfast of it.
Oh, you don't think mass corruption within FIFA might have contributed
I don't, actually.
to it? Well, I do.
No, I don't.
We are
Let's
the least
talk
corrupt
to,
country in the world, and therefore we didn't get involved.
You talk such a lot of old cobblers.
I do not.
Let's talk to Ray, who's a Man City fan. Hello, Ray. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Yeah, hi, Ray.
Mike Parry, I really love to listen to you, but I think you're way off the mark this morning.
Right, why?
Well, as a northerner, I think there's a discrimination if you're a football fan in the north because everything's got to go to Wembley. Well, to me, I agree. Wembley's soulless. It's just a football ground now.
What else do you expect it to be?
It's been the home ground for Arsenal, so I don't think it's as important as it used to be. That said, I think we're getting deprived. I've got my daughter, I've got my grandson, season tickets at City.
Yeah.
I would go and support. If they came to the Etihad or Old Trafford or Anfield or Goodison, we'd go and watch because it's unfair the cost to expect everybody to go down to London.
No, it's special. It's
Wembley,
special.
Wembley,
it's not
all as wealthy as you, Mike. We don't own properties and port scratching businesses.
Yeah. Well, I can't help that.
Right. He says all he's interested in is money, Ray. That's what can you say?
Yeah, he is indeed. It's total capitalist. Total capitalist. But the point I'm making is, why is it should
Without
be shared
capitalism,
out?
you'd have communism, by the
Do you
way.
mind letting Ray speak?
Yeah, go on.
But yeah. Please let me make my point, please, Mike. What I want to say is, it'd be nice for my grandkids to be able to go and watch the game. There's lots of people, it's all about what incomes you've got.
Yeah.
Spread it out. And I'll tell you what, if you kept the grounds in the north are fantastic. I think the support, and more importantly, you get proper football fans, where a lot of the Wembley people, guilty of it myself over the years, it's all corporate stuff.
Yeah.
They're not really about the football. They just want to go there. I think the support and the passion and getting behind the team will be far, far greater if they moved it around the country.
Exactly.
And I think we've seen that.
Do you know what, Ray? If you were a proper grandfather, you'd be planning now to take your grandchildren on their 10th birthday on a special visit to Wembley, because that's the peak of
Why should he
fan
only
viewing.
go once every 10 years?
Well, because you're saying it's special.
Mike, when City get to the final this year, we will be there, mate. Don't worry about it.
And will you take your grandchildren?
Absolutely.
And how
you
much?
will.
And how much? Hang on.
Well, that costs you money as well, you know.
No, hang on, Ray. Now, honestly, answer this honestly. I don't know how many of you are going to go, but how much will that day out cost you?
I bet best part 500 quid.
500 quid
it's
for a
worth
day
it,
at a
it's worth
football
it.
match. That's outrageous. Ray, thanks very much indeed for kicking us off. I want to hear from more of you. All of you will have a bad experience at Wembley. I've got loads of people tweeting me to tell me that.
Yes.
08717 22 3344. You've got to admit, Porky, that you are in the wrong here.
I'm not in
Cambridge
the wrong.
Tony says, thanks for sticking up for people from the north, Mike Graham. Wembley is just in the wrong place for most of us. David says, some international clubs like Germany played tournament qualifiers around the country and they seem to manage.
Yeah.
Don't know why England can't do it. And Wiki says, absolutely spot on, MG. Wembley is a no-go for anyone in the north.
Yeah.
The cost is prohibitive, especially if you want to take your kids.
Yeah, Stephen here says Porky should be congratulated for his time at the FA and clearly having the foresight to help in the design of Wembley.
Is that one of your fake accounts?
That's not one of my fake accounts. That's from a guy called Stephen, and he makes the point that, of course, Wembley's special, and it has to be
It's not,
special.
because you play,
Of course
you
it is.
play the Johnson Paint Trophy there.
Yeah.
You play all sorts of games there for club football, which shouldn't be played there. You have the playoff games played there.
It is
You have all
primarily
the-
the home of the England football team.
Yeah, but that's why they're so useless. Let's talk to
Yeah,
Mike,
not
who's
at
an
all.
Everton fan. Hello,
Yes.
Mike.
Hello, is
Yeah.
that you boys?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it
Welcome
is.
to
Yeah,
the
who
show. What do you want to say?
Who do you think it was?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Sorry, lads, I've been waiting to come in.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think you're wrong, Mr. Parry. I think we don't need a national stadium. I don't even think we've got one. I think we've got what's the you could call South of England Stadium.
Yes,
No,
I agree with that.
I think.
I don't agree.
I think you made a statement before. Southampton's ground's too small.
Yeah.
Is it too small to get passion in the crowd? Because I listen to your phone-ins all day long. And last week there was one, and it was people phoning in saying they'd rather their club teams won than England. They've got no like of England. They don't care what England does.
Yeah.
People haven't really got the passion no more. If we took it around the country, we'd get the people behind it. Maybe we could replicate 66. We could have a wave of euphoria and push them over.
Yeah,
I
but
agree.
Mike, when we
doesn't
get
make
to
the
the
fact.
FA, whenever to get to the FA Cup final this year, you'll change your mind about a national stadium, because where else would we play it? Eh?
Well, don't you think when we used to get to the finals in the 80s, when you got your semi-final at Ellen
The semi-final, I
Road or
agree, is
Villa Park,
it's a different case altogether, and I would certainly listen to an argument about taking the semis back onto club grounds like Villa Park traditionally. But for an England team, it's got to have a home. It's a cathedral. Wembley is the best in the world, and we should be proud of
Surely
it.
its home is this country, rather than something that looks as though it's got an earring, the boy.
Exactly
no,
right.
no. And what's
Jordan,
the
how
capital?
about,
We're the people.
how
We're
about
the
this,
people.
Mike?
Why have I got to travel to London to go and watch England play a minnow team in midweek and take a day off? And
Why have
all
you got to
this
travel
stuff?
to
I agree
London
with
to
you.
go and see your MP in Parliament? It's because
No, he's
it's
got
the
an
capital.
he's got an
No, he
office.
doesn't. He
No,
has a surgery at home.
he's got
Yeah, but
surgery.
you haven't got to go to see him in the Commons. You have to go to
Yeah,
London.
but you don't want to go and see him in the
Yeah,
Commons.
but I
That's a
don't want to see him in the
nonsensical
Commons.
thing to say. Mike, how about this? Jordan says this. Scotland used to play games all over the country a while back, and look at us now. Why not have a national stadium in the north as well? You can have two national stadiums if you want.
Oh,
But I
double
think-
the cost
but I
then that
think-
you've just been
no,
complaining about.
No, I think it's absolutely wrong to just have one in London. It doesn't make any sense. Mike, thanks very much indeed for your call. Lots and lots of very, very good points being made. We're
Yes.
going to take loads more of your calls. Scotty says this. When England beat Germany 5-1, Germany invested the same amount in their youth structure as the FA did on Wembley, and just look how that turned out.
Yeah, they've done
So there's-
extremely well.
So there's your proof.
They're a very successful football
They're
nation.
the world champions. They don't
Yeah.
have a national stadium, but they do have a national game. We don't have a national game, but we've got a national stadium. That's the difference. This is talkSPORT. This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. Jerry Armstrong's coming up on the show a little bit later on. And it's Ask Porky today as well. So if you've never had
Yes.
a problem solved live on air, or just some information that you've been looking for that you've never been able to get from anywhere else, now's the time to get it.
Get it from
you
here.
tweet it to us at the two mics, hashtag it Ask Porky, or look for us on the Facebook page.
It's a life changer.
It can be. Gary says this: the FA and the Premier League are the laughing stock of the world. Crazy fees for average players to the point where the fees are irrelevant. And Sean says, forget going to Wembley. The under-21s are at Bournemouth tonight. £10 for adults, £5 for kids. Hashtag better value. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it?
Some people like watching that because they play with less sort of fear, I think.
Yeah, well, it's more entertaining, you have to say.
Well,
I mean, the game last night wasn't terrible,
no.
But, it wasn't particularly, exciting either.
Oh, no, there were flashes there of exciting action and goals, and so that's what we called for. That's what we got.
Well, I don't know about exciting. I don't know what game you were watching. Let's talk to Keith, who's a West Brom fan. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
Hi, morning.
Morning. What would you like to say, Keith?
Wembley is an absolute nightmare to get in and out of.
Correct.
Like, I used to get there on a Saturday, when England played on a Saturday, I used to get there and take my grandson, not a problem. When they changed it to these night games, I'm from West Brom, as you just said.
Yeah.
I have to get a train down there or a coach. If we're on the coach, it takes an hour and a half to get off the car park.
Yeah.
If we're on the train, when we come out, at that time of the night, the train's only go back to Birmingham. So it costs me another 15 quid in a taxi to get from Birmingham back to West Brom.
Yeah, well, that's not fun. That's not much. I think you're whinging a lot here, Keith. And by the way...
Hang on, when you've paid for your ticket and you travel down, plus I have to have 2 days off work to get there and to get back.
Shocking.
Hang on, Keith. I go to West Brom quite regularly. My mate has a box there.
Your mate's got a box there, hasn't
that's
he?
Right,
yeah. That's nice for you.
And he picks me up at a station where the train, direct from London, stops at this station. Can't remember what it's called, but it's about 5 minutes from West Brom. It's about 5 minutes from the Hawthorns.
No, not of a night. Not of a night. When you get back from Wembley, you're getting back from Wembley. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning to Birmingham.
Yeah.
The train's down running to West Brom, then you can only get back in a taxi.
Yeah, but I mean, that takes 5 minutes. It takes me 5 minutes to get from Debenhams in Birmingham City Centre to West Brom. 5 minutes.
I don't live by the Hawthorns.
Eh?
I live in West Bromwich, but I live about 4 or 5 miles away from the ground.
Do you? Well, I mean, you can't have everything, can you? I mean, do you think Wembley was built just for your benefit?
Well, why should it be in London, though? That's the point.
Exactly. Why should it be in London? Why only by the NEC in Birmingham?
Well, hang on.
Well, the NEC's more like the centre of the country.
Excuse me. Have you ever tried to get in and out of the NEC when there's a few thousand people there? If you put 90,000 people in the motorway, in the Midlands motorway network, it would take you 3 weeks to get in and out.
No.
It would.
It wouldn't.
Keith, you know when Porky's losing the argument, he starts getting abusive.
I'm not getting abusive at all. I just can't have people ringing up and giving me drivel.
Listen, Keith, thank you very much indeed. Now, amazingly, we've got one man who wants to stick up for Wembley. Yeah. So far, that's the only guy. Everybody else says it's an absolute nightmare.
Because just before we talk to Charlie, Ross here says, Mr. Parry, you're absolutely right. Wembley is essential. It's a world-renowned site and part of our heritage.
What a load of cobblers.
Thank you.
What a load of old rubbish.
Thank you.
Let's talk to Charlie. He's a Chelsea fan. Charlie, what do you want to say?
Morning, boys.
Morning, Charlie.
Just wanted to say that my dad is a lifelong Crystal Palace fan.
Right.
And when they got to the semi-finals and the finals of the FA Cup a couple of seasons ago, the first thing I did was, I've never been to Wembley, but I had a look at that fixture and I saved up some money to take both me and my dad for a day out in Wembley, and it's honestly one of the best football experiences that I've had.
Of course it is.
How far did you travel to get there, Charlie? All the way from South London?
Yeah, we did travel from London, but...
Oh, right. Well, you travelled from London to London, then?
Yeah, but what we did was we stopped off with a couple of the other Palace fans at a couple of pubs.
Where?
The whole day out as a whole...
What, in London?
Was excellent.
Which pubs?
What do you keep going on about London for?
Because he lives in London.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course he's going to like Wembley.
And
it's only on the tube.
And allow him to tell us about his day out. So I had a few pints with your mates on the way there. You got to Wembley.
Baker Street, right?
You got to Wembley. The magnificence and the awe of Wembley struck you right away, did it, Charlie?
Yeah, well, getting off the tube and seeing the Wembley Arch, it's incredible. Because I've lived abroad, and I've only ever seen Wembley on the television before, and knowing that that's that's the home of English football, and taking my dad out, who last time he went to Wembley was a FA Cup final against Man United with Palace.
Yeah.
To be able to take him out and share the experience, it's honestly a day that I'm not going to forget.
What did you think of the facilities at Wembley? Did you have a Club Wembley pass, or did you just go to the bars there?
We were.
Yeah, go on.
We were up at in Club Wembley, and it was we were we were hosted magnificently.
Yeah. How much did that cost?
I had a great
if you don't mind me asking, Charlie.
Well, it cost us probably about a couple hundred quid each ticket.
Yeah. A couple of hundred quid a ticket.
Transport wasn't too big an issue, obviously coming from London.
No, of course not. No.
You know, it was. I thought personally, for me, it was worth it because I got to share a great experience with my dad.
Yes.
And
well, you're luckily, Charlie, you're obviously a man of some means. You can afford to pay over £400 for 2 tickets to a football match.
Well, no, I saved up. I'm only 20 years old.
Good
but
man.
I worked extra hours in order to take my dad because, going to Wembley for me, it's as a football fan, it's a special experience. It's not something that I'm just going to take for granted. Whereas perhaps
you are a great son. You're a great son to your father.
Well done, Charlie. Very well done. Travelled all the way from South London to North London.
You see,
spent £400 on a ticket. Well, it's not the normal. Excuse me.
The poor lad comes on. He's 20 years of age.
It's not the normal experience for football fans, right?
And you ridicule and mock him. At 20 years of age, he saved up to take his dad. Take his dad out for a special day out. And all you can do is pour cold water over that experience.
But he's not exactly having to struggle in from Manchester or from West Bromwich, as our previous caller did. How about Paul from Exeter? That's a long way away. Paul, a very good morning to you. What would you like to say?
Good morning. Hi. I just remember that Ken Bates advocated putting the National Stadium in the middle of the country.
Yes.
Where it would be more useful for everyone, and he was much maligned, and the Blazers and the FA just ignored him.
Yeah. Well, that's because that's what they do, because they think they know best, Paul, don't they?
Paul, you live in Exeter, right? And so
no,
it is...
No.
Oh, where do you live then?
I actually live in Cheshire, Mike.
In Cheshire, right, OK. So why do you support Exeter then? Is something wrong with you?
Well, he comes from Exeter.
I'm originally from Exeter.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
right.
Unlike you, who's originally from Chester, who supports a team from Liverpool.
No, I support a team from the northwest of England, where my parents come from. Well, Paul, why do you want it in the middle of the country? That's Nowheresville. Then people have to travel from the south coast, the north coast, the east coast, and the west coast.
Yeah, but it's a lot easier than getting to London from the northeast, the northwest, wherever else.
No. Well, the proof in the pudding, Paul, is the only person who's rung in today to tell us that he loved going to Wembley was a guy who came from South London.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I've been to Wembley a few times with Exeter City, of course, in the playoff finals. I think we were the first team to play at the redeveloped Wembley twice.
Yeah. Really? The Grecians?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, that's great, and I'm glad you had a good experience there. I don't know where you'd put it in the Midlands, because
fans went to that.
Clearly you know nothing about, town and country planning in the West and East Midlands. There is not a site where you could build a national stadium. And anyway, you can't call Wembley Wembley if it doesn't exist in the borough of Wembley, OK?
Wembley's not a borough.
Wembley is the most famous... I know it's the borough of Brent.
Well, it's not the borough of Wembley, then.
Oh, sorry, I thought there were a couple of stations around there called Wembley.
It's not a borough, though, is it?
There's a couple of stations around there called Wembley,
there is a place called Wembley.
And there's a place called Wembley.
But it's not a borough.
But there's a place called Wembley.
You said the borough of Wembley. I'm just correcting you. Take it easy.
I said the borough in which Wembley exists.
No, you said the borough of Wembley.
No, I did not. I knew it was Brent, don't worry. I knew that because of Ken Livingstone,
really?
OK?
What's Ken Livingstone got to do with it?
Ken Livingstone's got everything to do with it.
He was the Mayor of London.
He was the Mayor of London, but he represented, when he was on the Greater London
Paul, listen,
Council, he represented Brent.
Parry's now gone completely doolally. No. I think the heat's got to him. Gary says this, MG, give Porky a slap. He's so annoying this morning, losing the plot because he's in the wrong. Clueless, FA-loving plank. I think that pretty much sums you up.
I am not in the wrong at all, anyway. Here we go. Old Chris says, I'm from County Durham.
One.
I've got a 7-year-old boy, and I'd love to take him to see England in midweek games, but it's a no-go. And at the weekends, it costs a lot to travel. Yeah, but Chris, you've got to save up, like our previous caller Charlie said. He saved up
from South London.
From South London, he saved up £200 to take his dad for a day out at Wembley.
£400 he got. He said
£200 each.
Yeah.
£200 each.
Minimum £400 for a day out. Wembley lost its magic, says Peter, when they started playing the game, the Cup semi-finals there. It's all money, 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 same as the players. And Wembley is the sort of place, says Blue Mona, you only go to once. Overpriced, overrated, southern nonsense.
Now, Robert makes a great point, which nobody else has pointed out except me. Robert comes from Devon. He says, so try living in Devon. I've not heard anybody mention it. He said, in Devon, I'm 200 miles from Wembley, but I would be 250 miles from the Midlands or from the Northwest.
Yeah, well, there are no football teams in Devon, are there, worth talking about?
There is actually. There's one called Torquay.
Yeah, I know. But
I guess who got a draw in the 90th minute at Torquay last weekend?
I don't know, Chester. Really? They're playing tonight, you know.
I know they're playing tonight.
Solihull.
Solihull Wanderers, is it?
No, it's not that. It's a funny name.
Solihull
something, or Bulls, maybe, is it?
Bramblers or something. Ramblers or something like that.
Solihull Ramblers.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is, do you know what? We used to go on holiday to Torquay, and we all piled into my Vauxhall Viva once.
Solihull Moors.
Solihull Moors, that's right, yeah. And we piled into the old Vauxhall Viva, which was 7 years old, and had a lot of luggage and a lot of people in it,
Right.
And we went burning off down to Torquay, but it took about 9 hours. So
was that you stopping at every pub on the way?
Well, yeah, virtually, yeah. But, and what happened was, of course,
was that where you met Trudy?
No. I'd met her before.
Okay.
I think I'd dispensed with regular girlfriend at the time because Torquay was such a woman-rich environment, to use the famous line from the Tom Cruise film.
That's a horrible phrase.
Top Gun. Well,
you've seen The Time, by the way.
Yeah, well,
it's a family show, this.
Yeah, of course it's a family show.
Family show.
Yeah.
We'll get into the Torquay trip a bit later on.
Can you imagine Chester going to Torquay and getting a draw in the last minute and then getting back in the coach and getting all the way back to Chester? It'd take about 7 hours.
Well, it'd take about 24 hours, wouldn't it?
Well, it might
go
be.
round trip.
Depends on the size of the coach.
Maybe they stopped off at the Solihull Moors.
Yeah, Solihull Moors.
This is talkSPORT. This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Wix have lowered the price on Blue Circle general purpose cement. Get 25 kilograms for just $3.79 each when you buy 3 or more.
That's absolutely right. Now, talking of Wix, of course, we send a £100 Wix gift card to our best caller every day. So give us a call, please, on 08717 22 3344. The calls to this number will cost you 13p per minute, plus your provider's access charge. Find competition rules at www.talksport.com.
Sam's asking the question, Solihull Ramblers. Is Porky on the Red Bull again, he said?
Oh,
it's the Solihull Moors, of course.
Yeah, well, I knew it was something like Moors or Ramblers.
Well, Moors or Ramblers, nothing similar, really, are they? Yeah. Chris says, the best atmosphere I've seen at Wembley was a Robbie Williams concert. Says it all about our national stadium. Move England around the country.
Well, that's another reason why it's such a magnificent structure, because somebody told me they went to a Take That concert there, and it was pretty impressive.
You know someone who went to a Take That concert?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
That's a bit embarrassing.
Well, it was Andy Townsend, actually, so you want to tell Andy it's embarrassing.
Well, I will tell him. I'd be more than happy to. Unlike you see, if I say something about somebody, I say the same thing to them when I see them.
Oh, do you?
Whereas you, of course,
I do.
Weasel out of it and pretend you haven't slagged anybody off. Let's talk to Jack, who's a West Ham fan.
Okay.
They've got a new stadium too. Jack, a very good morning to you.
Well, I don't care where you have Wembley because we never get there at the moment anyway.
Well, you're going to have a tough season, aren't you? I mean, blimey, 3 defeats so far, and you've got another away game to come.
I think it's safe to say if you do get to Wembley, Slaven Bilic ain't going to be your manager, Jack.
That's a bit harsh.
Oh, listen, who's going to be the manager? Because, you know, who out there would anyone want? You know, I mean, I think we've got the best we can get at the moment. But let's move on to Wembley because I actually, you know, I've got a good job. I earn a few quid, and going to these places is not cheap for me. And I reckon that people in the north are getting a hard deal. I do think that there should be a national stadium. I wouldn't say in the Midlands. I would say maybe in Manchester. And I was talking to a researcher and I was saying to him, that would be a great idea because people from London have got good links up there. But then I thought to myself, what happens if you live in Cornwall or Plymouth? So your links to London are good, but to get to the Midlands or to Manchester might be quite difficult.
Yeah, but the thing is, Jack, there's hardly any football fans in Cornwall or Devon, so don't worry about them. Honestly, you know. No, it's true. No, it's true.
You know, getting in and out of Wembley, I mean, it's always been a bit of a nightmare, and I actually don't enjoy it there. When we did get in the playoffs and we went to the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, that was a great day out.
Yeah.
Because going to Harrow is boring. You know, Wembley, Harrow, that area, it is boring.
There's nothing there, Jack. Jack's right. There's nothing there.
There's a nightmare on the trains.
Yeah. And there's nothing there once you're there apart from the stadium. It's in sort of a wasteland. Whereas you go to Cardiff, you're in the centre of the town. You've got loads of great pubs you can go to.
But getting to Cardiff and back is a nightmare
it's not on the
with
train,
trains and late trains and all that.
It's a day out, though, isn't it?
Well, it's a day out if you want a day out in Cardiff, yeah.
Yeah, Jack, let me just ask you a quick question about your own new stadium. What do you make of that?
So what? I absolutely love it.
Good.
Right?
I liked it when I went there.
But I'm one of the lucky ones that's in the lower tier, which is near the pitch. And when you go back to the old days at the Bowling Ground, which we loved, when it was right on top of the pitch, when you had the old chicken run, it was brilliant. But what they did at West Ham is when they introduced the seats and they built the new West Side, that's when the atmosphere changed at West Ham. It wasn't recently. It's been going downhill since the introduction of seats anyway.
Right.
And I'm praying to God that they're going to let us have some safe standing at some point, because real West Ham fans and fellas like me who are in their 50s that used to go back and enjoy the terraces, we're looking forward to that day because it's going to be fun. But getting in and out of the London Stadium is really good.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
It really is. It's a lot easier. I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier getting in and out of that place than it is Wembley, Jack. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, well, of course it is, because it's purpose-built for, mass crowds of people, because it was originally an athletic stadium.
Excuse me.
For the Olympic Games.
Wembley was built from scratch. If that's not purpose-built for large sporting events, I don't know what is. You're talking absolute rubbish.
No, I'm not, because the construction of the Olympic Stadium had to be dictated by the Olympic Committee.
Yes, but why is Wembley so useless in terms of getting there and getting out?
I would say because the price of land in that part of London is so now extremely high that money talks, and developments around Wembley have encroached upon the parameters of the stadium.
So the FA concentrated more on how much money they were going to make than about the fans and their well-being.
The FA actually lost an awful lot of money by not acquiring land around the stadium.
I was just reading this morning, they've sold off another car park for development for housing.
Well, they haven't sold off a car park. They didn't own the car park in the first place.
Well, it's no longer theirs to use as a car park. Let's talk to Ray, who's a Liverpool fan. Hello, Ray.
All right, gents.
What would you like to say, Ray? You're in Stoke. Have you been to Wembley?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the best experiences I've had following England was when they were travelling around the country. And my worst experience has been the new Wembley, and it made me stop going. And the reasons were, basically, you travel there, the cost of being outside was a joke, the programmes are expensive, the food is expensive, and the service is crap. You've got the corporate band all the way around the ground that kills the atmosphere. And also I found and spoke to people around me that you can't hear the people, what they're singing in the ground. It comes out like a Mexican wave. Every time you find out what they're singing and joining, they've stopped.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I don't altogether approve of people singing loudly.
Porky only ever goes in the hospitality section. He doesn't know what it's like in the rest of the ground.
Don't be ridiculous.
Has he missed the 20 minutes then after the first half?
Well, listen. The access to those particular areas of the ground is difficult. You've got to fight your way through and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing is, Ray, you say you've stopped going. I mean, presumably you stopped going because, you enjoyed the experience once and you didn't want to be a regular England fan, which I understand.
No, because he was put off by the travelling.
No.
It feels like it's just corporate now, football.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that,
Here's an example. Who opens the home of football with an under-21 game against the Italians?
Yeah, but you have to test all the procedures and all the systems.
You sound like an FA spokesman
I'm not an FA spokesman. I'm defending the National Stadium because I'm proud of it.
FA.
I wish there was a bit more pride in this show. A bit more pride we could do with round here.
Yeah, southern snob.
You open a stadium like Wembley, and you open it in an under-21 game. Come on.
I know, it's hopeless, isn't it,
That was called...
It's people like Porky that have ruined football in this country, ruined the FA, because they've got this ridiculous attitude that the fans will come no matter what. They've stopped going, Porky.
It was a soft opening, a bit like your head, like your soft brain.
The soft opening around here is somewhere I'm not going to mention. This is talkSPORT. Rubbish.
What do you mean?
Sounds like a James Bond's tune.
It is.
Very well known.
It is.
Is it?
Now, George Lazenby.
I don't recognise it.
George Lazenby, 78 today.
George
Lazenby.
30.
Yeah. Now he was the one-off James Bond.
Why are you telling me all this?
Well, because you see, he's 78 today. We're commemorating his birthday, and he is quite a unique individual. The only man ever to have played James Bond once and never again.
And because he was so useless.
No, he was very good, I thought.
Really?
And,
I don't think I've even seen it.
Right. Well, Sean Connery.
There's a good reason to watch the old Sean Connery ones.
Yeah.
Pretty good reason to watch some of the Roger Moore ones, even though I don't like him as much.
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton, I could do without.
I could.
And I really thought, and in fact, Pierce Brosnan, I thought was my favourite Bond.
He wasn't bad.
And never. What was it? Die Another Day was on the other night.
That's right. Yeah.
I watched that.
Is that the one where they give him an injection when they get him back from being a prisoner in Korea?
That's right. Yeah. And Halle Berry comes out of the sea.
That's right. Yeah.
In an orange bikini.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Who could forget that?
And George Lazenby.
But this guy, I don't think I've ever watched it.
Well, you should have done because it's all about a man mountaintop Erie, where a mad nutter is turning women into robots to go and kill people around the world and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Sounds ridiculous.
And, of course, James Bond gets in there and tries his seductive methods on these women.
Yeah.
But Lazenby...
they're all robots, presumably.
Well, some of them are. So Lazenby, right, was first spotted in an advert carrying a huge wooden box on his shoulder.
Yeah. Is he not an Australian or something?
Yeah, he's Australian, and it had Fry's Chocolate Delight written on it, and he was called Big Fry.
Oh, right.
You know, here comes the Big Fry. You know, that was his...
Well, I mean, a lot of them came from that sort of background, didn't they?
Yeah,
a
they
lot
did,
of these guys were sort of advertising salesmen,
Well, Roger Moore used to advertise knitting patterns for cardigans and that kind of stuff, you know.
And Sean Connery done a couple of adverts for something as well.
He was a milkman.
He was a milkman.
And then he was a bodybuilder. He's Mr. Universe.
Yeah, but I think he was doing adverts for something
was
as
he?
well. Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, the point of the story is this is the least known and
probably
worst,
least successful as well.
Well, least known and worst Bond theme tune ever.
Do you know who wrote it?
I've no idea who wrote it. I don't know if there's any words in it. And
what's it called?
I don't know. And what's more...
So you've had this played, you don't know anything about it?
No, I don't know anything about it, because everybody knows the theme tune, you know, Goldfinger.
Yeah. I don't want it to
everybody
go through
knows.
No, please don't sing. Please don't sing
like
every single Bond. Please, just stop. No, just stop.
And this one is little known. But anyway, I thought he got a hard time, but it was his own fault, because after they made the film, with Diana Rigg, by the way, because James Bond got married in this film, on Her Majesty's
I'm already
Secret
sick
Service.
of this guy,
no, hang on.
I don't want to hear any more about him.
Diana Rigg got murdered then by opposition spies.
Really?
Yeah, enemy spies, I suppose.
Opposition spies?
That's right, yeah.
Who's that there? That's an opposition spy.
That's right, yeah. And,
what's the formation?
And then after the film, you know, went out and all that, Lazenby apparently went to see old Cubby Broccoli and said, well, I was so good in that, I think you should double my money
Cubby
for the next
said, no,
one.
Now we're going to hire
Cubby said, there's the door.
Yeah. So was he between Sean Connery and
Roger Moore? Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So they tried it out and failed. Great failures of our time, a bit like your argument about Wembley. Now, here's somebody who deserves instead a happy birthday greeting, and it is, of course, Gracie. Her father, Scott, sent us in a note the other day to say, could you please wish Gracie a happy 9th birthday on Tuesday?
How lovely.
Because she's a big fan of the show.
Yes.
Isn't that nice?
Yes, very nice indeed. What's her dad's name?
His dad's name is Scott.
And Scott says, happy birthday, Gracie, on her 9th birthday today.
Today.
Well, Gracie, if you're listening, have a lovely birthday, my dear, and have a great day and have a great life.
Have a great life. Here's another one from Alan. He says, can I get a shout out for my brother Kenny, who's 49 today?
Kenny.
And starts his Fit for 50 plan. I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean, he's in his 50th year already, isn't he? So he better get moved on that one.
Yeah.
Kenny, have a great birthday, my boy.
How do you know he's Scottish?
Well, Kenny usually is.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, like Kenny Dalglish.
Well, Kenny Parker, who we used to know at the Express,
Yeah,
right?
he was from Sunderland.
Well, he was a sort of, he was a borderline Scottish.
Yeah, he's not. He was English.
Yeah, but in the borders
That's
up there,
like when you asked Ian Rush yesterday if he was disappointed or whether he regretted not playing for England.
I didn't ask him
Where he said, actually, no, because I'm Welsh.
Yeah, you've twisted my words again.
We're going to talk about the Welsh later on, because Gareth Bale is due to, according to a prominent newspaper columnist today, due to return to the Premier League because, apparently, he's had his chips at Real Madrid.
Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly what he's saying. I'm talking about Martin Samuel, okay? Great journalist and columnist on the Daily Mail. And the headline across his piece is, time for Bale to pick up the phone when our clubs call. Now, the point that Martin's making, you know, having looked into this with great insight, is that is Gareth Bale necessarily a world superstar anymore who can just suddenly say, you know, I don't want Manchester United?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that he's a world superstar, is there?
Well, I don't. I think Martin's actually saying, how does he fit into the thinking of English clubs now? And that actually it's not just Manchester United anymore he could come back to. He could say, you know, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City. Why can't they all start thinking ambitiously about getting stuck in for Bale? Because
would he go back to Spurs, maybe?
Well, I don't know. It's a good question. But when Martin looks into his record, he's only ever been available for half of the games at Real Madrid since he's been there, because he has had injury issues almost from the day one. He says that he never really got taken to the heart of what Martin calls the fickle Bernabeu crowd.
Yes.
Okay. And
they do turn on people quite quickly, don't they?
They can turn on people. In the absence of Cristiano Ronaldo, suspended Ronaldo suspended for that sending off. Zinedine Zidane has been playing Asensio and Bale. When Ronaldo returns, Zidane has a decision to make. So Martin's saying he might not even be a first choice starter, you know, when Ronaldo comes back.
He has been unlucky with injuries, hasn't he, I suppose you could say?
Yeah. Asensio has 4 goals to Bale's 1 in the most recent match at home to Valencia. penalty. Asensio scored twice, while Bale's performance was derided and he was substituted. So what Martin's saying is there's a time and a place for a player, and the time and place for Bale to beat Real Madrid may now be coming to an end. And therefore, why don't more English clubs get ambitious about the possibility of bringing him back?
Yeah.
Now, this of course...
Well, I mean, certainly there's enough money here to bring him back,
Of course there is, because the figures we've read just this week show that the Premier League is the wealthiest league by a mile compared to the European ones.
Yeah.
But, of course, this clashes...
Although you say that, but I mean, the two most expensive deals in the world now have been done between Spain and France.
Yeah, except that they were state-funded, obviously.
Well, it doesn't matter.
But the money wasn't raised from... No, it does, Mike, because the money wasn't raised from the leagues.
No, I know that.
The Premier League raised their money through their popularity.
Yes, no, I get that.
Yeah.
But, well, actually, they do it through television deals, which is...
Through their popularity.
Which is again, a bubble that could burst.
Through their popularity.
Well, no, it was through television deals, because the television companies
lots of people
believe that,
pay the subscription.
But there is evidence that lots of people who are paying the subscriptions are actually going to start falling, and it's going to dwindle, and that more and more people are going to watch football in a less...
So you're saying that popularity may dissipate rather than dwindle?
Yes. What I'm saying is it's not so much popularity, it's the belief that the money coming from the TV stations is going to keep increasing.
Yeah.
But if that is the case, I mean, how much was it? 10 billion, I think it was, that Sky paid for the next lot of games?
Countless billions.
Yeah.
But this...
So, I mean, do you think next time it will be 15 or 20, or will it maybe go down a bit?
Who knows? But it all clashes with the fact that we learned before the start of the season that Gareth Bale had said, please don't sell me to Manchester United. So that in itself may have been a hint that, maybe all is not well in the relationship between player and club.
Indeed. Well, we shall see. We'll be talking about that coming up a little bit later on. Jerry Armstrong's coming up next, though, because we're going to talk to him about Northern Ireland and much else besides. This is talkSPORT.
Right, OK, folks, this is the two mics. We're on talkSPORT and we are with Wicks. Now, Wicks have lowered the price on Blue Circle General Purpose Cement. Get 250... No, I've got that wrong. I'm sorry. Get 25 kilograms. 25 kilograms for just £3.79 each when you buy 3 or more.
25 kilograms. You can get your own weight in
exactly.
Blue Circle Purpose Cement, can you?
Certainly would.
It'd be about 100 kilograms.
250 kilograms would be like nearly 2.5 times me.
Can you imagine that? 2.5 times Mike Porky Parry.
That's right.
Now, just before we talk to Jerry Armstrong, this is coming from Ian in Gloucester regarding George Lazenby. He actually played 007 twice. He played him in a Man from U.N.C.L.E. film, Where the Spies Are. David Niven only played 007 once in the original Casino Royale.
Yes, but you see...
So, in fact, you got that wrong as well.
No, I didn't. I knew David Niven had played him, but that was a spoof James
but
Bond.
It was still the guy that played James Bond once.
No. It was the spoof James Bond. It was a comedy version, and it wasn't under the James Bond badge.
You mean it wasn't made by Cubby Broccoli?
No, it certainly wasn't.
He still played James Bond once.
No, he
and
didn't.
Lazenby played him twice.
No, he didn't. Lazenby didn't star as James Bond in a James Bond film more than once. Simple as that.
Well,
right, let's get on with it. Come on, you're wasting time.
Let's talk to Jerry Armstrong. Jerry, very good morning to you. Sorry to hold you up there.
Good morning, Mike and Mike. How are we?
Yeah, morning, Jerry. Very well indeed. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Now, we wanted to ask you about Gareth Bale, because I don't know if you've seen Martin Samuel's piece today, but he's suggesting that Bale and Real Madrid may part company soon because it's kind of coming to the end of its road, if you like.
Well, it's been suggested for 6 months that he was going to Manchester United. He's quite happy where he is. They've got the best squad in Europe in terms of football. They're winning everything. I don't see why I'd want to move. And he's had a few injuries. Obviously, he's had injury problems, and you need to be consistent. You need to keep playing like 10, 12, 15 games in a row. I can't see Gareth going anywhere.
Well, you say that, Jerry, but doesn't a point come when if a player knows he's not loved by the club anymore, and let's face it, in Spain, when you play for one of the big two, you've got to feel that El Presidente wants you, you've got to feel that the coach wants you, you've got to feel that the fans want you. And you have to say, of those three requirements, there's certainly doubt over two of them, isn't there? And that is the coach and the fans.
Yeah, well, see, the problem you've got is now, if it's a fit Gareth Bale who's consistently playing week in, week out, he's going to be in the team every time. I've seen the same with Karim Benzema, and Benzema got slaughtered recently over, missing chances and stuff like that. But Benzema's been consistently scoring goals for Real Madrid for a long, long time. And fans have a bit of a short memory, and the press are very quick to point the blame. So, they've got the strongest squad. They are the favourites to win La Liga. They're the favourites for the Champions League. Why would you want to weaken your side and get rid of one of your star players?
Well, and I mean, I suppose for all of the glamour of the Premier League, there can't be many more glamorous teams to play for in the world than Real Madrid, really, can there?
Absolutely. He's still a young man as well, Gareth. I mean, who's to say that he won't come back to the Premier League in a year or so? But at this moment in time, I don't see him going anywhere. I don't see Real Madrid wanting him to go.
No.
But fans are fickle. I see Ronaldo as well. Another one when he's went through bad times. Ronaldo and saying, "Well, I'm off," and the fans. He just wants a wee bit of love and a bit of attention, like a lot of players do.
Yeah, sure.
But, as I say, I think he'll stay put.
Sure. By the time Gareth Bale may leave Real Madrid, and you say he's going to stay put, so we'll say that this season is sorted out. But if it happens next summer, Martin's also making the point that he's no longer, just the exclusive property of Manchester United if he comes back. Because of the money now generated in the Premier League, one of half a dozen clubs could make a bid and bring him back. And how would that work? Is Gareth Bale the sort of player you see for one particular club in the Premier League, Jerry, apart from Manchester United?
No, I would say Gareth Bale would be an asset to any club in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Whether it's Tottenham, whether it's Arsenal, whether it's Chelsea, whether it's Liverpool, Manchester City, Man United, they're all clubs that would love to have Gareth Bale.
Yeah.
Believe you me.
Yeah.
But again, as I say, I think it's a possibility in the future, but not this season.
Okay.
I mean, do you think he has done what he was expected to do at Real Madrid? And I accept everything you've said, Jerry, as far as him not going anywhere. But he was really thought to be the kind of, the sort of eminence Greece, the guy who would inherit Ronaldo's crown. But he hasn't really done that, has he?
Well, he has. But see, you have to look at the emergence of Marco Asensio, who's come on the scene in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Naturally left-footed, explosive pace, and he's a Spaniard. But then I'll go back to, you watched the Spanish game against Italy. Isco got 2 goals, was sensational. Isco couldn't get into the Real Madrid team most of last season. Didn't feel loved and had to sign a new contract. These things happen in football, and it's all about circumstances and timing. And I think the circumstances and the timing at the moment keep Gareth Bale where he is. But there's loads of clubs, not just in the Premier League. There's loads of clubs in world football would love to have Gareth Bale.
Sure. Now let's move on to Northern Ireland, Jerry. Yep. I mean, you've played in the World Cup for Northern Ireland. They've had a fantastic qualifying campaign so far. Another win last night against the Czech Republic. They're more or less guaranteed a place in the playoffs now, aren't they?
Yeah, just about. I think we're on 19 points, although they'll take 6 points off us for the San Marino game. But even along to that, we should still finish in the top 8 second-place teams. There's only one team going to miss out. I mean, if you look at France and who are top of their group, and Northern Ireland's accumulated more points than them. I think England's top of their group, and they've only got 1 point more. So, I mean, it's a fantastic. They've only conceded 2 goals, and that was to Germany in the 8 games they've played. 7 clean sheets. It's a fantastic story. Great credit to Michael O'Neill and the staff and the players. They've been fantastic.
Yeah, it's
they
true.
have been, yeah.
Johnny Evans was on talkSPORT, funny enough, last night after that win, and he was full of praise for Michael O'Neill. Let's have a listen.
It was a very tactical game. Had to change formation within the game, and they sort of caught us by surprise with the formation that they started with. So I think the managers brought that tactical ability to adapt, and I think that's been very important for us also.
I mean, Michael O'Neill's been amazing, hasn't he, Jerry? And you don't hear, funnily enough, I mean, Chris Coleman's always getting mentioned when club jobs come up. You don't hear Michael O'Neill's name much being mentioned. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think they're muttered certainly under their breath because, of what a great job he has done. He's taken, that squad and players to the Euros last season. And as you say, they're on the fringes of the playoffs. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of tough teams in the playoffs. That's another one. So it's going to be humming away. But to do that in itself with the squad he's got and the resources he's got is just amazing. And I would say there's going to be a lot of clubs after him when this World Cup campaign's over.
But he may decide to stick with it in the same way that Chris Coleman has. When you've built a dynasty like that, you don't really want to walk out on it, do you? You want to say, right, we can go even further.
Well, yeah, but you have to look at the circumstances now. You've got Aaron Hughes, who played his 108th cap last night at 37 years of age. You've got Gareth McCauley, who's 36. You've got to look at what's coming through. And Michael will work that all out in his own mind and say, well, have I taken it as far as I can? I would say he might say, he has taken as far as he can after the qualification and the World Cups in the summer. And it's going to be a new challenge for him because he's still a young man, and I would love to see him involved with a top club in the Premier League and show him what he can do.
I'm sure he'd be absolutely brilliant. Listen, Jerry, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
For taking the time to talk to us. Jerry Armstrong there, former Northern Ireland International, of course. A couple of more tweets coming in here on the George Lazenby thing.
Yes.
Nick says, apparently George Lazenby was married to USA tennis player Pam Shriver.
Was it? I didn't know that.
Which is extraordinary. And here's another one from Lord Fanwell. It says, George Lazenby wrecked his career when he went on the Simon D show stoned and ranted about JFK's assassination.
Really? I didn't know that.
I don't remember that.
That's amazing. I mean, most of our listeners won't remember Simon D.
I remember Simon D.
But Simon D was the genius who...
he was the original sort of talk show host, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he had a show on the BBC, and he was the original hipster interviewer kid of the 60s.
Yeah.
And used to, the opening shots used to show him driving round in a white E-type jacket.
Right, yeah.
And he had a flowery shirt on.
And he had a sort of a safari suit on, didn't he?
And then he had, like, flowery shirts in some of the shots and all that, and he had the, the blonde hair and all that kind of stuff. And he had a very successful first season on BBC. So I went to see a guy called Bill Cotton, who was in charge of BBC television.
He was a member of my golf club, funnily enough.
Well, this is Bill Cotton Jr., because his dad was Billy Cotton.
That's right, yeah.
Wakey, the old entertainer on. So Bill Cotton Jr. was then in charge of... So somebody walked in and said, "Hi, Bill. Well, you know how popular I am now, don't you?" And he said, "Yes, you've done very well." He said, "Good. I want you to double my money next year." He said, "No, don't be ridiculous." I said, "Well, if you don't, I've got an offer from ITV. I'm leaving and going there." And Bill Cotton said, "You'll have to go then, because I haven't got any more money to offer you. I'm sorry. And you're going to wreck your career."
Yeah.
He said, "You don't know how popular I am." Anyway, he went over to the ITV. 12 shows later, they cancelled it, and he was never seen again. And the last job he applied for...
People are still doing that, of course,
last job he applied for was as a bus driver.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How bizarre. Interesting
Absolutely,
tales of the broadcasting
So
world.
maybe it was the other way around. Maybe Lazenby didn't wreck his career. Maybe he wrecked Simon D's career by arriving on his show stoned.
Very possibly so. This is talkSPORT. A lot of interest in your tales of woe with old Simon D and that former James Bond. Here's one from somebody who doesn't actually give their name, but says Bob Holness played James Bond on radio in South Africa.
Really?
And then he says, Porky's a total spanner about Wembley.
I went to the old one.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd gig.
Exactly.
Do you remember David, what's his name, the former motoring correspondent at the Express?
David Benson.
Yes. He was once interviewed for the role of James
Bond.
Was he? He was a South African as well.
David Jacobs apparently played him on the radio as well.
Did he?
Yeah. According to somebody else.
Absolutely.
And Lord Fanwell adds this. Simon D ended up in court for pinching a potato peeler.
Oh, really?
The JP hearing his case, strangely enough, was also named Bill Cotton.
Bill Cotton?
That can't be right, can it?
No, I don't think so.
Extraordinary. Now, how about this from Julia, our friend? She says,
yes.
Will Porky, this is actually coming in as an Ask Porky, but I'm going to do it now.
Right, yeah.
Will he be dressing up as Santa for the 2 March Christmas party in Shepherd's Bush?
Yeah.
And does he want me to be his elf?
Well, I can't think of a better elf to have, Julia. If we're going to have
safety.
If we're going to have an elf, we'll let you know. We'll let you know, absolutely.
Yeah. And then finally, this one from Bobby, who says, Mike, I'm playing footy across the road from talkSPORT Towers at 1 p.m.
Oh, really?
Can you give us a shout out to me and the boys from the window?
Yes, okay, but we're going out the back door today. Sorry about that one.
Yeah, right.
No, only joking. Anyway, Tim here says, do you realise that most of the James Bond themes are written by John Barry? He did most of the Bond soundtracks across Connery, Lazenby and more.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true to an extent. John Barry wrote the classic themes.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun,
Yes.
dun, 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 dun.
Well,
But
he
each
probably
film...
had a role in each of the other types of songs as well,
Well,
right?
yeah, but each film had an individual sort of... like Paul McCartney wrote the one for Live and Let Die, obviously, and performed it. But you might be right. He might have helped other people out on the songs like Goldfinger and Thunderball and all that. Now, that tune, do you recognise that tune?
The tune we played a while ago was Gary Newman, wasn't it?
Gary Newman, that's right. It's called Cars, right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because at last now other people are starting to recognise what I've been trying to tell the world for a decade.
What's
and
that?
that is that the world is getting clogged up by hopeless town planners who not only now give us bus lanes, not only now give us cycle lanes, but now give us restricted car spaces in almost every aspect of our life. The result of that is that millions of drivers are being reduced to a crawl.
Yeah.
This is a report that's come out of one of my transport journals today.
Oh, yes.
Millions of drivers are being reduced to a crawl on journeys across Britain, as an in-car study has revealed, and the figures are horrifying. Motorists within 1 mile of city centres are edging along at an average speed of just 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And places like Edinburgh, Glasgow and Manchester, 6 miles an hour. London, of course, the capital, the worst, at that 5 mile an hour speed. But in Liverpool and Bristol, the average speed in the centre is just 7 miles an hour. And it raises only to 9 miles an hour in Birmingham, 10 miles an hour in Sheffield and Bradford, and 11 miles an hour in Leeds.
Well, this, of course, is a deliberate policy. I mean, they've done this because that's what they want. They want you to be either, one, so disgusted with driving around in the city that you don't bother doing it anymore and you travel on public transport. And two, they think it's safer somehow because nobody's going to get run over. Now, that's all very well. However, it's got ridiculous, hasn't it?
But there's a third reason. The third reason is that if they manage to gerrymander travelling through cities by putting red lights on almost permanently, by putting roadworks all over the place so you have to narrow down from 2 lanes to 1, and you get frustrated about that, by actually closing a lot of roads to traffic and only allowing buses and taxis to go in, so you've got to take public transport.
Well, I've been hearing every weekend, I think for the last 3 weekends, the Aston Expressway in Birmingham is shut for the whole weekend.
That's hopeless. That's the only way to get to Villa's Ground as well, if you're coming off the M6. So what I'm saying is, what they do is they then say, oh, look, because the city centres are so crowded, we're going to have to introduce a congestion charge. Or if they've already got one, we're going to have to put up the congestion charge. We're going to have to double it.
To reduce the number of
cars.
To
reduce the number of cars, because this can't go on, can it? We've got to have fewer cars in city centre. That, of course, then impinges upon the ability of people to run their businesses, because you can't run a business if you can't get access to it, and if people can't get to it, to be able to spend their money in your shop or in your, your service station or something like that, you are knackered. So once again,
but at the same
it's
time
a massive assault on the car driver in this country. Which is something that we should focus on and rebel against. Because remember, drivers, and all of you out there are drivers, and I'm a driver, there's 40 million drivers in this country. Why do we kowtow to a bunch of bums on the planning committees of most major cities who tell us car drivers are not good? We're good when we're raising millions and millions and billions of pounds for the country.
They don't mind the money. They don't mind
taxes.
that money. But the other thing that they do, which is also counterproductive to them trying to get less congestion, is they then grant licenses to people like Uber, who put about 30 or 40,000 cars into London, additionally to what we've already got, because they get money from those people because they need to pay to have a licence to drive around the centre of town.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's not, and that'll be happening in lots of different cities in the world and in Britain as well.
Of course.
And it's ridiculous. And I've got some more bad news for you, right? Because you know how you don't like all the bike lanes and all the kind of cycling that goes on. Yet another bike hire company is launching a service in London. Starting in Hackney, 200 bikes are going to be just placed.
Just left on the pavement.
No docking scenario. They're just going to be left lying about. It's a yellow bike hire scheme. You were telling us about the one in fact, you were praising the one in Gosport, bizarrely, the other weekend, which seemed a bit odd because you hate cyclists. And, these are fold-away bikes, which are actually not in Gosport, they're in Portsmouth. The reason they didn't put them in Gosport, of course, is people just nick them.
Fold-away bikes, which you put into, like, what I would describe as a sort of a locker that you might see in a swimming pool. A little 2-foot high locker.
But they're also fold-away bikes, aren't they?
Fold-away bikes that go into this 3-foot-high locker.
But you can take them on trains and all sorts of things, right?
That's right,
But these ones, riders unlock the bikes using a smartphone app and a Bluetooth connection.
That's right.
And you pay 50p for 30 minutes.
Yes, that's right.
Wandsworth Council have already confiscated 130 bikes owned by the rival firm O-Bike because they got loads of complaints about them causing obstructions. People just leave them in the middle of the pavement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is ridiculous.
I know, it is utter... I mean, transport policy in this country is absolutely dreadful. What we need to do is build a lot more motorways, make them toll roads so that people can
that's not going to help the middle of the cities, though, is it?
Well, in the cities, they should build the motorways around the city so that people don't have to go anywhere near them. Then have lots of slip roads down into the city. So what I mean?
Yeah, but the problem is... remember they talked once about building a big cantilevered motorway over the Thames?
That's right.
I don't think I'd like them to do that, because I think that would ruin the look of it.
Well,
I'd rather they buried underneath and got a tunnel or something.
Yeah, when I first got to Birmingham, when I was working there in sort of the late 70s, I was so impressed at the way that the city planners had underpasses, flyovers... But
Birmingham's a right mess now
it is a mess now. It seems to be a cogent transport policy. And you quite rightly say the Aston Expressway come off the M6 and the A38, I think, junction, and come straight past Villa's Ground. But the last time you and I were there and stayed in a hotel in Birmingham, they were actively reducing the roads to one lane only.
They dug up all the roads around the hotel, which was right by the Birmingham Rep, which is a massive part in the middle of the city.
That's right,
up by, what's the name of that road that goes up with all the bars on it?
Broad Street.
Broad Street,
yes, that's right,
It's a complete nightmare. And we were doing a show there. We were only nearly late for the show because it took me about 45 minutes to go about 100 yards. on one of Birmingham's main arteries.
This war on the car driver, when is it going to stop? It's
never going to stop.
It started with Ken Livingstone becoming Mayor of London, saying we've got to introduce a congestion charge. He said that will reduce traffic in the capital. My contention is it's never reduced congestion in the capital.
No.
In fact, it's probably made it worse.
It has.
And as a result, he's just raised, and every mayor since, hundreds of millions of pounds to then build cycle lanes, which make the life of the motorist even harder. Even harder. And bus lanes and everything else. And, it's a damn disgrace in this country that the people who produce the revenues for our road planning system is the motorist, who is then persecuted by the very people who are supposed to help.
Here's one from Finney in Bury, who says, Ray, the Aston Expressway, I'm not from Birmingham, but tell Porky there is an alternative road from the M6 to Villas Ground.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but the most apparent one, the most obvious one, is the Aston Expressway.
Right.
It's called the Aston Expressway, and Aston Villa is Aston Villa in Aston, so it all makes sense.
It does.
To use the Aston Expressway.
Yeah, it's the first thing you said today that does make sense. Harry says, Porky's losing it, # Gary Armstrong.
Who
is Gary Armstrong?
No, Jerry.
Well, at least you didn't call him Neil Armstrong.
No, I've got to call him Neil Armstrong.
That would have been worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is talkSPORT. This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Wix have lowered the price on Blue Circle General Purpose Cement. Get 25 kilograms for just $3.79 each when you buy 3 or more. This is talkSPORT. We are the Two Mics. Don't forget, Ask Porky's coming up in the next hour. So if you've never had a problem solved or a question answered live on air by the Porkmeister, now is the time to do it. Look for us on our Facebook page, The Two Mics, or tweet us at The Two Mics, # it Ask a Porky, and we'll do all that coming up in the next hour. Right now, though, it's time to talk to Martin Ziegler, Chief Sports Reporter for The Times, because he's written a piece this morning in which it is suggested that IPL wages are going to soar because there's 1.97 billion reasons £1 in a new TV deal. Martin, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, guys.
Hi, Martin. Thanks for joining us. Martin, can I just ask right away, is this absolutely correct that players can earn close to £10 million for a 6-week stint in the IPL?
That looks very, very likely indeed. At the moment, we already have had a player earning £2 million for a 6-week stint a couple of years ago, an Indian player. Yeah. And now they've had the income from TV rights is going up by 5 times.
Golly.
So it works slightly differently in the IPL. They have sort of marquee players who get paid a lot more than the sort of the lower ranked players in the team. But for the top players. Yeah. So what people in India think is going to happen now, the salary cap for each franchise is going to go up from 7 million to 25 million. So they'll have 25 million to spend on a squad. And the top player, they reckon, is going to get 10 million for 6 weeks' work. It's incredible.
I mean, that dwarfs a Premier League footballer's wage, doesn't it? By a mile.
Well, certainly on a weekly basis. It does.
Yeah.
But I mean, I suppose not if you didn't do anything else for the rest of the season.
But as Martin said, on a weekly basis, that's $1.5 million a week.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Now, just let me ask you to hold on for a second, because Drive Time co-host Darren Gough was talking about this yesterday and said that this is going to spell worrying times for Test cricket. So let's have a listen to what he had to say.
That's the death of Test cricket, I'm afraid, in India. Now they're just playing Test cricket to get fit for the IPL. That's what it looks like. That sort of money, where's money going to come through for people watching Test cricket? We're nowhere near that. That's a massive, massive kick in the teeth for Test cricket, that is.
And what about Test cricket here, Martin? Is it going to have a knock-on effect for players who are going to be sort of leaving in even bigger numbers than they are already?
Well, I think we are certainly going to have the fact that people any player will want to go to the IPL to play for the start of the season. So, but I think they are pretty certain that they're not going to go beyond May the 21st, May the 22nd each season. So they will miss the start of the season. But in terms of like playing for test matches, that normally doesn't start anyway until June, July. So actually, in terms of English Test matches, they shouldn't have too much of an effect. But I can see, Darren Gough is right. For the first time now, the TV rights per match for a T20 game in India, we're talking about, are now more valuable than a Test match in India. That's never happened before. So it is a change, and quite right. People are worried about Test matches generally. But I mean, I think actually what's much more likely is this isn't the end of Test matches. This is the beginning of the end of the old county championship style 4-day matches, because you're lucky if you get 100 people going on to those games.
Yeah, it's always a sad sight, isn't it, when you see it in the summer, you see an empty ground and all that. I mean, this might sound like a stupid question, Martin, but where's all this money coming from? I know that India is a booming economy, but it's still, run by 3 or 4% of the population who have wealth and 96% of the population who don't.
Absolutely. I mean, the 2 billion is for the global rights. So a lot of it is for India itself. There's 1.4 billion people there. They're all cricket mad. But actually, if you look at Facebook trying to get a piece of this action, Facebook bid $600 million just for the digital rights. We're not talking about TV.
Yeah.
So if Facebook, somebody like that, is putting in that sort of money, then clearly they think this. If you look at the cricket-loving world. Is actually massive, and in terms of the sort of digital internet access, that's becoming more and more important.
And what will they do with that then? They won't live stream it, presumably. Will they? What do the digital rights enable them to do?
Yeah, well, digital rights, you'll be able to live stream it to various markets. Obviously, they can sell it on. They can sub-license it. Obviously, they won't want to affect their own TV deals, but I mean, it's anyone looking to sell TV rights, whatever sport, things like Amazon, Facebook, become more and more important. In fact, the people talking about that for the English Premier League when the new rights are decided next year. Lots of interest in whether one of these massive internet companies will come in, because actually they have so much money. Even people like Sky and BT Sport won't be able to compete.
Well, there's so much reach as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I was told a few years ago, Martin, that once you've cracked the technology, if you've got 1% of people in China paying $1 a week for subscription football of the Premier League, footballers here will be getting paid £10 million a week.
Yeah, I mean, it is the sort of.
It's all a numbers game.
That's right. It is. If you can break into these, to these populations and. Everybody just about now has access to the internet, one way or the other, and that's just going to grow and grow and grow. And especially younger people are much more focused on digital viewing things digitally rather than the traditional TV anyway.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
And and finally, Martin, will this create a sort of two-tier effect in terms of cricketers in this country? Because obviously those who go to play in the IPL will be far wealthier than those who don't.
Yes, but if they're one of the marquee players who get signed, so Ben Stokes, for example, he got 1.7 million just playing in the IPL. Last season, incredible, incredible sums of money. Yeah, other people from England who went to play in the IPL, they were only getting £80,000. Still not bad for 6 weeks, but I mean, completely different stratosphere.
No, of course.
Yeah, indeed.
Fascinating stuff. Martin, thank you very much indeed. I mean, you do wonder how Facebook and Amazon and these companies, these digital companies, are going to take over, because they're bound to in the end, because they've got billions and billions of customers, haven't they?
It says in Martin's story, right, I'm reading out of the Times this morning, it says the Star India contract, which is the one we've just been talking about, also illustrates the increasing value of digital rights. Sony, one of the biggest companies in the world, had actually offered more for the TV rights alone, 1.33 billion, but did not bid for any digital rights. So that's another, that's another
form
consideration,
of revenue,
another consideration that's got to come up.
Incredible.
Star India managed to secure the entire rights by a combined bid that also enabled it to see off competition from Facebook and Be In Sport, which of course is the Middle East guys in Qatar.
Al Jazeera.
Yeah, that's right.
Basically. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. And we'll be doing some stuff on Facebook as well,
which shows
you that we are at the very vanguard of the new digital revolution.
We're at the vanguard. Give me my 1.7 billion. Quick.
This is talkSPORT.
Father wears his Sunday best. Mother's tired,
This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. We've got Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on, but coming up very shortly, we're going to talk to Martin Roberts, who is, of course, from Homes Under the Hammer.
Yep.
He also happens to be Talk Radio's property expert.
He certainly is.
The reason we're talking to him is because there's an interesting story doing the rounds this morning about Hal Robson-Kanu, who was, of course, a bit of a Welsh hero in the Euros over in France a few months back. Yep. He's been refused what's called retrospective permission by the Planning Council in Berkshire, in Reading specifically, for fencing that he put up at a house that he bought in 2012, right, when he was playing for Reading. So he's presumably going to have to rip it all out. He bought this house basically before it was finished.
Well, it's called off-plan.
Off-plan, yeah. I know you're an expert in these things. I thought you should probably be the man to tell the story. Yeah. But it's Bracknell Council that he's got a problem with, right? Apparently they've added, the Bracknell Council say that his fences have added 400 square metres of green belt land to his garden.
Funny enough, I've had experience of this. I once bought a house in a place called Banstead in Surrey.
I remember that, yeah.
And it was a 3-storey high house. But the back garden, it was the first time I realised that builders were cutting back on the costs by giving you no back garden at all, just a heap of mud.
Right.
I mean, and discarded bricks and everything in it.
And
your
just left it for you to sort out.
Yeah, which is, in one way, is quite good, because I got somebody in to, dig a...
so you can do what you want with it, really.
Well, yeah, you dig a chamber for drainage and put flagging down and then a couple of hedges and all that. But
was it clear where the border was?
No, this is exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. But the thing is, I pushed it right back as far as I could and grabbed some garden. And years later got into a dispute with... because they built more houses beyond my border at the back and then were claiming that I'd encroached upon their land, you know. Okay. So I must be something similar to that, I think, because mine was built on land which had previously been farming land. So,
Well, I think this is one of the cases here. Let's talk to Martin about it, because he'll probably know as much, as, if not more than you as well. Martin, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hi Martin.
Guys.
Yeah, now this is a problem that a lot of people have. I mean, I didn't have anything like this, but when I was selling a house once, they did a survey, the people who were buying it.
Yes.
And I got some very odd questions about the borders, because they said to me, "Where are the borders of the property?" And I said, "Well, where the hedges are." And they went, "Well, no, they're not." And this was an old house that had been there for donkey's years. So people have these problems all the time, don't they?
They do, and I think one of the issues is that sometimes the plans which exist with land registry are a little bit wishy-washy. They were drawn up literally in a pub, in the 1800s by a guy with a pencil. But there is this rule, which if you can encompass a bit more land, and if nobody whinges about it for, I think it's 7 years, then you can then apply to have it scooped up into your ownership. Yeah. And so that is actually what some people try on. I'm not suggesting that this man was doing that, but he could have been thinking, well, actually, nobody will notice. I'll just put up a fence, and after 7 years, if I can prove that nobody's whinged about it for 7 years, and actually I can actually have that land. So if you like, that's the situation in this case. And the planners have come in and said, actually, you know what? We notice it. You can't have it.
Yeah. Well, you see, I think in this case, I don't think he's trying to improve necessarily the value of his property. I think because he's a footballer, it's nice to have a bit of privacy. And so if you can extend a bit of land away from your front door, if you see what I mean, and then put some gates.
Greenbelt land. I mean, apart from the odd person who's walking with his dog, it's greenbelt. It's trees and fields and flowers. I mean, it's not a hippie commune.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, Martin, but we're going to have to scrap a lot of the green belt, because if we don't, we won't have enough houses to house people in this country, and that
but it's
means...
green belt for a reason, isn't it?
No, you're going to have that under some tarmac, mate. That is a really bad attitude.
No, it's not, because if you want to bring the value of houses down so more people can afford to buy them, you're going to have to increase the supply of houses, and you can't increase the supply of houses unless you release some of the green belt.
Yeah, rubbish. The next time they're singing Green and Pleasant Land, you'll be there going, tarmac the lot of it.
Yeah, calling my view rubbish. Yeah,
he's been talking rubbish since about.
I'm calling it misguided.
Yeah, misguided.
Well, he's been talking rubbish since about 10 o'clock this morning, Martin. There's no reason for it to change now.
I think not. But Martin, in my particular case, what happened was my house was built on sort of. Farmland, but where there'd been barns and things before, you know what I mean?
Did you have to, in the end, sort of row back with the hedges and stuff?
Well, fortunately, I'd sold it by the time the dispute started, so it was nothing to do with me.
Oh, so you left it for the new owners
to sort certainly, yeah.
See, that's the kind of guy you're dealing with here, Martin, you know what I mean?
But the thing is, Martin, what I found was that when nobody knows...
Just check, you know the books you have to fill in when you sell a house? Do you know of any legal disputes which are happening or might happen? No. Did you tick no, or did you tick yes?
I just left that to the lawyers to sort out, in lawyers speak. But the point is, what I found out was there were some wimps around who, what they did was they put up a bit of chicken wire where they wanted their garden to end, right? Now, that to me was pathetic and weedy. What I did is I got a bloke in to build the most massive fence you could imagine, with concrete posts sunk into concrete, wooden posts sunk into concrete and big fencing and all that, and made it absolutely clear.
Searchlights up.
Well, that sort of thing. It made it absolutely clear nobody encroaches on what I now believe to be my land, whereas the chicken wire was just torn down.
Yeah, well, the reality is if nobody wins without it for 7 years, you would have actually got away with it. Sad, but, you would have done. But it is actually happening all the time, and there are a lot of people who just put a fence where they think their land ends. And the other thing is people get into utterly ridiculous disputes where they almost bankrupt themselves, arguing over a few feet of fence.
Yeah.
So, you've left a wonderful time bomb of problems for the person who sold your house to.
Yeah.
Good on, mate.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right about those disputes. There was one recently about a woman who vindictively stopped her neighbour from going and looking at her own electricity meter because it was on a bit of land next to the house which she said belonged to her. And in the end, the protagonist paid out over £500,000 in legal costs when she was found to be being unreasonable by a judge. People don't half get carried away, don't they, about that strip of land is mine. No, it's not, it's mine.
Yes, and it can literally be over inches. Now, we all know inches are important, but you just got to sometimes take a step back because the only people who will only win in those circumstances are the lawyers.
That's right.
And so usually you can try and find fair and reasonable solutions to these things, but there are some bonkers cases where people just lose the plot and fight over what they think is their land, and it turns out it isn't, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But the reality of this bloke is I think he was trying it on, he got caught out tough.
Yeah, well, you say that, but I mean, I regard people who
you're always trying to put something over on people,
who challenge authority as the good guys, because if we had to kowtow to authority all the time, to petty planning regulations from small-minded local officials, pen pushers who get golden-plated pensions for working a 9-to-5 day, then my view is that we should challenge these people and make them come into the real world.
Absolutely. You know what? I think it's a very, very, very sensible, grown-up, mature attitude.
Yeah, thank you.
It really is. In fact, why don't you go and work for Bracknell Council? I'm sure you get on very well there.
Bracknell Council, yeah.
Martin, listen, thank you. When are you next on Talk Radio?
On Saturday between 11 and 1.
Saturday between 11 and 1. Martin Roberts there. Yeah. He instantly took a dislike to you. He's spoken to you before. No. Realises you're just a sort of a money-grabbing, greedy, horrible sort of landowner.
That's very harsh. That's very harsh.
Nasty business.
And I'm not anyway.
Really?
No.
How many homes do you own?
Well, listen, this is irrelevant. You always get onto this.
I'm just asking the truth.
You always launch into class envy with me.
You can't handle the truth.
You always want to launch into class envy with me and turn the audience against me. No. Just because I've worked hard all my life and you've basically just completely screwed up most of your life lost all your assets.
Incorrect.
And that's not my fault. But
I haven't lost anything. I've just given them away.
You hate me because
I've given them away.
I've had an orderly life and you've
but you've had a sad, lonely life, whereas I've had a very fulfilling and rich life and have 4 beautiful children.
Staggered from one crisis to another throughout your life. It's got a good job that you eventually ended up on Planet Porky because at least I was able to stabilise your withering routine.
If you're my only hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm in big trouble. This is Talk Sport. This is the 2 mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Wix have lowered the price on Blue Circle General Purpose Cement. Get 25 kilograms for just $3.79 each when you buy 3 or more. Now, we've got Ask Porky coming up soon. We've got loads of questions coming in already, but if you want to get 1 or 2 in under the wire, if you make them interesting enough, you might just make the final cut.
That's right,
which is coming up in about 10 minutes. Now, we've got an interesting situation on our hands that I have to tell you about.
That's right.
Somebody called Josh has tweeted this, right? Downloaded all recent 2 Mics podcasts with the journey back to Maidstone from Devon later on.
Okay.
Me, my fiancée Carly, and my daughter Savannah, right?
Yes.
Or their daughter Savannah, right? Now, unfortunately, under that Carly...
What a nice name. Savannah.
It is a lovely name, isn't it? As in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah.
Carly, who's the fiancée, has tweeted underneath it, "We're not listening to those."
Okay.
So she's obviously putting up a bit of resistance to listening to the 2 Mics.
Bit like Rod Stewart, really. in the sense that Penny doesn't...
well, she never said she didn't like she didn't like the two mics. She just didn't like talkSPORT.
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah, but they soon got over that, didn't they? In the sense that... By the way, Rod's been in Las Vegas recently, hasn't he?
He has.
Yeah, that's
well, what about Josh and Carly? Why are you moving off them?
No, not moving off them. I'm just saying that she's trying to impose upon her chap.
And he's saying yes, and he's now said again, he's now tweeted again, yes, we are.
Oh, yes, we are. Well, there
Radio
we go.
Gold. I fear we're causing a domestic problem here.
I very much hope not. By the way, did you see your old mate, the Duke of Marlborough, was...
oh, yeah, Jamie Blandford.
Yeah, was about this morning. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that, yeah.
And guess why?
Because he's doing something with hedgehogs, isn't he?
He's turning Blenheim Palace, which is one of the most... Well, it's a
fantastic place.
I was going to say, it's one of the most eminent buildings in this country. It's one of the most beautiful buildings. I've been there and seen all the art collection and all that kind of stuff.
I think I went there to interview somebody once.
Yeah, well,
I can't remember who it was.
It's beautiful. It's just outside Oxfordshire, Oxford, isn't it? No,
it is.
Where is it? Blenheim. It's Woodstock.
It's
near Woodstock.
It's in Oxfordshire.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. It used to form a sort of seat of the Churchill family.
Of course it is. Yeah, and now he's inherited it, right? Yeah. But he's had a few problems over the years, hasn't it? Because I was reading his rap sheet. If you see what I mean, he's been to jail and all sorts of things. Well, he had problems with drugs, but he's an old mate of yours, isn't he?
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about this on one of the other podcasts that we do, the On the Record podcast. And yeah, I mean, when I was a reporter working for the Express. Shortly after I came back from New York, I was sent down to doorstep him because he was in some kind of trouble. I can't remember what it was. But because I used to sort of see him running in and out of the house all the time, we started talking to each other. And finally, at one time, he gave me his number. Yeah. And I gave him my number. And he used to ring me up at sort of 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, usually out of his mind, out of his tree, because he was unfortunately very heavy about somebody that he loaned money to, hadn't given any back. Yes. Sometimes he would ring me up and say, you run out of drugs. I mean, it was a bizarre kind of relationship, but he used to give me quite a lot of stories. And he was a really nice guy, actually.
Well,
and I'm very glad he's cleaned himself up.
Well, he has cleaned himself up because he's now the Duke of Marlborough, you know, and the reason... that he's featured this morning in one of the publications is because he's turning his vast estate, because of course he is now the Duke of Marlborough himself, not the inheritor, Jamie the inheritor, and he wants to look after hedgehogs.
He's got 22 hedgehogs, right? Yeah. And he's got himself involved with a charity, and he's declaring a 2,000-acre site to be the first hedgehog-friendly stately home.
Isn't it brilliant?
Well, I suppose so.
I think it's brilliant when you do something like that for, God's little creatures. I think it's terrific.
God's little creatures?
Yeah, well, that's what they are, hedgehogs.
Well, not necessarily. Not everybody believes in God.
Well, to me, they're God's little creatures.
In fact, there was a story today, was there not, I think, saying that only half of the people who live in Britain actually have a religion of any kind.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So they're not necessarily God's little creatures.
Less than half are believers now.
There you go.
Yeah.
So here's his rap sheet. He's got more than 20 convictions for drug offences, burglary, criminal damage, numerous driving offences, punching a police officer. Yeah. He also spent time in prison for forging prescriptions and dangerous driving.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
He used to live just down from Earl's Court. In fact, we drove past the house not long ago.
That's right.
And I pointed it out to you. But, I mean, he was one of those very colourful, aristocratic characters.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, as much as he's got a rap sheet...
A bit over-colourful, really,
well, possibly so, but
he
never really did any harm to anyone. No. I mean, he punched a police officer, but I mean, he never really did...
Yeah, but I think the circumstances of that were that, I mean, he didn't walk up to a police officer and say, right, copper, I hate you, bang.
No.
It was during a sort of drug-fuelled and drink-fuelled fracas.
Probably he was being arrested at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I once was actually doorstepping him outside of his apartment, or his house, rather, in Earl's Court, and I'm sitting in a car, and we've been there all day, me and a photographer, and we were so hungry that we decided the best thing to do is to order. We couldn't really leave the spot, so we ordered a pizza to be delivered to the car.
Yes.
And when I was ordering, I rang up the pizza place and they said, where are we delivering it? So I said, we're outside number 51 or whatever it was. And they went, we mean you're outside? I said, we're in a car. And he said, we can't bring it to the... I said, why not? I said, you bring it to a house.
Why can't you?
Why can't you deliver it? And eventually they brought it to the car.
Right, okay.
That was great.
Yeah,
but unfortunately, just as we were about to tuck in, he came out the door.
No, right.
So we had to throw the pizza in the road and start chasing him down the road.
Well, I mean, if you knew him, why didn't he stop and say hello?
Well, I don't think that was in the early days. I think that was before we had established the relationship.
Contact, okay. Yeah. Now, Johnny here, you see, you lead these people down these garden paths of abuse against me.
What's that?
Johnny says, Porky, why don't you adopt your fence idea in Wetherspoons so you can properly guard your table for one?
Well, you do.
Whenever you're in there.
Well, you do, though, don't you? You've told me before that you sometimes go in and you get the old roped off area, and you put the rope around the table that you're sitting at.
No, I don't
to
do
stop
that.
people from coming anywhere near
No,
you.
I don't. What I do is I put my coat on one chair. If it's a table of 4, right?
Yeah.
I buy 2 drinks instead of 1.
Yeah.
And put one in the place opposite me.
What, to make out you're with somebody?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Then I put my coat across the back of the 3rd chair, and I put my bag on the 4th chair. So and then I put.
What if it's very busy?
Well, that's hard luck. I got there first. It's never very busy when I get in there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a table for 4 free, would
That's true.
And
but I mean, that's because you get in there so early in the morning.
Yes, well, it might. Yeah, sometimes I do. But then, as it gets busier, I protect my territory.
That's what I mean. When people start to come in for lunch.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things that
I spread a few papers around on the table to make it look like other people are sitting there reading them. You know what I mean?
That's ridiculous. So you have this whole kind of fantasy world going on around you.
No, it's a protective policy.
Well, don't people realise there's nobody there for hours and hours on end? You're just there on your own.
It's up to them. I mean, it's what I call proactive protection of your space.
There's nothing worse, by the way, than sitting in a pub and enjoying, say, a morning reading the papers or an afternoon reading the papers, and suddenly somebody comes and sits down at the table.
Well, they wouldn't at mine.
Well, no, but they sometimes must do.
No, I told them to get lost twice.
But I mean, that's just because you're antisocial.
No,
but,
no.
Most people would just go, and somebody's sitting there, you go, no, and they sit down. I'll
tell you what happened this morning, by the way, which is very odd as well, and it's happened once or twice before, so I don't know whether they're picking on me, but
they probably are.
I get an early train.
Time, by the way.
I get an early train in, right, because I like to avoid the great and wash masses, for I've been unkind.
Like
you know
the listeners,
what I mean?
you mean?
No. Our listeners they're very well washed and showered people. Yeah. So I go right to the.
Hey, how about this? I've got Thomas here. Yeah. I've actually seen Porky protecting his territory in the sports bar at Waterloo Station.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, maybe you have, yeah. But that's because I'm watching the football and I don't want everybody to be talking to me when I'm trying to watch the football. But anyway, so I get into the 8th carriage of an 8-carriage train, right? And I'm sitting right at the back because I find that...
Is that where you enjoy the journey the most?
Well, yes, because it's the least full carriage. You know why? Because some stations can only serve the front 7 coaches and people are told not to get on to the 8 if they want to get off because the platform's not long enough. Yeah.
And also, for most trains coming into London, the exit is at the front. Yeah. So actually, if you're at the back, you're furthest away from the exit.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And a lot of people are not bright enough or energetic enough to walk all the way down to the back of the train. They just jump on the first door that opens, you know. But I'm smarter than the average bear.
So you keep
saying. Anyway, this morning, at the 2nd station, a chap got on. He walked all the way up the carriage, it's an empty carriage, all the way back, and then sat down in the seat right next to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's
an
invasion.
When there's loads of room.
Yeah, exactly.
That is weird.
That's an invasion of your private
space,
weird, you know.
Yeah.
And when I say right next to me, I don't mean the seat right next to me. I mean across the aisle.
Oh, okay.
He sat in that seat there.
That's all right, isn't it?
But facing me.
Why?
Well, because why didn't you push
across the aisle?
Yeah.
So there's plenty of space between you and him.
No, it's a very narrow little aisle and there's nobody else in the carriage.
But still an aisle.
Weird. Yeah, but that's very weird. That guy should have gone off and got his own private space further
Did you
up the
give
carriage.
him the death stare?
I moved. At
you
the
moved?
At the next station, I thought, I'm not having you invading my private space.
So where did you move to? Another carriage?
I went to the front of this carriage I was in.
So you stayed in the same carriage?
Yeah. But
That's horrendous.
I let him know that I thought he was a weirdo and I wasn't going to sit near a weirdo.
Well, of course you made him think he was a weirdo.
Yeah.
But when you were the one that moved.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, you do that and you sit that close to somebody, there's something wrong with you, I'm telling you.
Yeah, that would make 2 who have answered. We've got lots of questions here, as ever. Many of them have been sent to our Facebook page, The Two Mics. Many of them have been tweeted at The Two Mics, of course. Hashtag Ask Porky. So shall we start? And can I once again urge you to be as concise as possible?
Indeed.
But as informative as possible.
Yes.
We'll start off with a football question from Peter.
Okay.
Is it time to scrap international breaks and internationals in general?
Well, I do think that they're a nuisance, particularly as they come so early in the season, because just as you think you've got up and running in the Premier League, then you've got a break. I think the whole qualifying process should be looked at because so many of the England games are meaningless. You pointed out yesterday, England seem to get into groups where they're the dominant team and a lot of the ties are superfluous, meaningless and not entertaining. I would ask for a review.
OK. Here's the one from Stuart, who says, I know Porky's a well-travelled man. Does he have any recommendations for things that me and the wife can do in Chicago at the beginning of October?
Chicago. Chicago, it's my kind of town.
Is it?
Well, what I find you do in Chicago is...
You're not going to answer it entirely in song,
No, I'm not, no. Go there and get a boat around the canals, because in Chicago you will come back with a ripped neck.
Really?
Because there are more tall buildings in Chicago than even in New York.
Yeah.
And if you get on one of the boats around the canals, you no joke, you spend most of your time looking upwards at these magnificent buildings.
Well, why do you want to do that?
Well, because the architecture is so brilliant,
right.
and they give you a book. When you get on the boat, they give you a book of all the tall buildings and all the details of the buildings as you're going past them, and it's fascinating to see where they were all built and why they were built. It's like the emergence of America.
Well, they had the tallest building in the world there for a while, didn't they?
The Sears Roebuck, in the emergence of America during the 20th century. There's that to do, and the other thing I would do is go in the winter. It'll be very, very cold. You may even see the waves frozen on the lakes.
Yes.
It's a brilliant city.
Yeah, okay. Here's one from Craig. He says, I'm starting a new blog soon on the marketing and e-commerce world. What's the best way to gain exposure once the content is flowing?
Well, first of all, you've got to do something different. Secondly, you've got to have access to people who know that you're doing it. Otherwise, there is no point in doing it. So what I would do is I would just get good and let people know you're good and devise your own method of marketing yourself. It's all about the numbers game.
Johnny says this: how should I deal with annoying neighbours whose cigarette smoke enters my house? I've already tried speaking to them.
It's a big problem, and I've heard about this problem before. If you live in a sort of a flat on the 4th floor and you open your windows in the summer and some guy sitting on his balcony on the 3rd floor, some lady, and they're smoking and the smoke's drifting in, the only thing you can do is a polite approach to the neighbours. Don't get aggressive about it.
But he looks like he's already tried that.
Aggression doesn't do anything. Just be polite to your neighbours and ask them if they can curtail it. If not, then you have to start getting tough. And getting tough means that you have to do something retaliatory. So maybe, I don't know, just some spilt water suddenly pours down on their head from the flat above. But don't do anything criminal.
No, you certainly wouldn't want to encourage anything criminal. No. And, of course, in America, a lot of people have got around this problem by banning smoking in buildings.
They did, which is the best thing to do.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's a bit difficult, isn't it?
Can we get on with the questions, please?
Yeah, all right, calm down. I'm just explaining to the people something
they
other
don't
than
want your
explanation.
They want mine.
They want yours today. Okay, well, here's one from Thomas. Do I buy Joshua against Pulev tickets in Cardiff and go on a massive bladderation session?
Sorry, Joshua against who?
Pulev says.
What's that? Is that a fight?
Yeah, it'll be Anthony Joshua's next opponent.
Oh, of course, yeah, Joshua, that boy. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You know who Anthony Joshua is, don't you?
Yes, of course I do, yes. What I would say to that is, I would say that if you want to make a sporting occasion the centre of a great social weekend, then you jolly well should, but don't do what I've seen happen in the past, an England-Scotland game at Wembley, where the boys came down on the overnight train, and by the time the game started at 3 o'clock, were face down on the pavement outside Wembley and never saw the game.
That's not good. And, of course, a boxing match might be late at night as well.
Exactly.
Joe says this. He's obviously a youngish chap. He says, my mother won't let me have another pet rabbit. What can I do to convince her?
I'm not sure how old you are, but if you are, old enough to send me a question about pet rabbits and all that, then I assume you're at least a teenager or something like that. And frankly, that's a domestic situation you've got to sort out yourself. But I wouldn't have thought there was any room in your life for a pet rabbit. I would get doing better things that are more interesting and more useful to you than keeping a pet rabbit in a hutch.
That's a bit
cruel
harsh.
Anyway.
Ross says this: Porky, is it old-fashioned to buy a girl flowers, and should I do it?
It's not at all old-fashioned to buy a lady flowers, and of course you should do it, and the best way to do it is to present them personally. However, if you can't, you can get on the old website to Interflora, who I've used many, many times, and they'll deliver the flowers for you, and they do look lovely when they've been done up professionally.
When was the last time you sent somebody flowers?
Can't remember.
1981?
No. This year sometime.
This year?
Definitely, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Here's one from Spook. Which town do you prefer, or city, Newcastle or Sunderland?
Well, Newcastle, because I lived and worked there. I like the people there. I know the people there. I'm nothing against Sunderland, but Newcastle is undoubtedly the regional capital of the northeast of England and Geordieland itself, whereas Sunderland, of course, is a completely different culture, the Mackem culture, and I don't have a lot of experience of it. If I was doing anything in Sunderland, and I don't wish to be unkind here, I would stay in Durham.
Here's one from Kayang, who says, Porky, how do you and your 49% of your working heart deal with stress?
I deal with stress by looking at it face on and taking it on. Stress can mount up on you if you're not proactive. So, for instance, if you've got a problem, don't wait for the problem to solve itself. Get stuck in, initiate a solution to your problem. And you can say some problems are insoluble. They're not. As long as you are having a go to try and solve it, you'll feel better about yourself.
Now, here's a health question coming up from Luke. He says, Himalayan pink salt, is it beneficial to your health or is it a massive con?
I've never heard about it. I've never used it. So the answer to that is, I don't know. There are plenty of things that I do in terms of diet to keep myself healthy. Himalayan salt does not register with me. Sorry.
OK, but obviously eating too much salt might be not that great for you.
Well, there have been several medical reports recently saying actually salt's okay. Now, I'm not telling people to take that as read because it's an alternative scientific view. I do like salt on, certain foods. Not chips, actually. Oh, yeah, chips, I do. Yeah, chips and fish and all. I don't like vinegar on chips. But you must judge for yourself how much salt you think your body can take.
Here's one from Peter. My mother wants me to take her to a Rod Stewart tribute act in Liverpool, but the package involves staying at the Adelphi Hotel. What's your best advice?
I'll turn it down on 2 counts. Right. Firstly, the Adelphi's a dump, and the best thing I could do with the Adelphi is knock it down and build a proper hotel there. And that's a very serious observation. It's so antiquated now and so run down. That's my personal experience, by the way. I'm not making a judgment on the Adelphi, but that's the experience I had when I last stayed there. And secondly, I can't watch Rod Stewart tribute people because I've seen the real thing, and it'd be impossible to imagine anybody, even coming close. I
see. Yeah. Menksy says, can you give me any advice on getting rid of a hangover quickly, please?
It's an individual thing, hangovers. The best way to have got rid of a hangover when we were younger men was just to keep drinking the following morning. Yeah. But, I mean, you might be going to work or something like that. So I always concentrate on not changing my routine, i.e., got a hangover, I'll stay in bed 10 minutes longer. No. If anything, get up 10 minutes earlier, attack the day from the start with the hangover problems. I never used to get hangovers, to be honest, as a younger man. No. So I didn't have headaches, I wasn't vomiting, anything like that.
That's fine. Too much information.
Yeah, I had plenty of energy to get on with the day.
Really? Mark says this, the FA took an hour after last night's match to come up with a pitiful excuse for Dele Alli. What excuse would Porky have come up with in his day?
I wouldn't have come up with any excuse at all. I'd have gone to Dele Alli and said, what were you doing? And that would have been seconds after the incident took place. And then if he'd have told me, I said, that's great. And I'd put that as an official statement. And I wouldn't have put out an apology because he didn't think he'd done anything wrong.
OK. Here's one from Matthew, a very kind offer. He says, I have a spare place in our executive box at Old Trafford for the Everton game on the 17th, if you would like it. Yeah. Lots of bladderation.
And what's that guy's name?
His name's Matthew.
Matthew, thank you very much indeed. But on the 17th, it'll be the day after we have hopefully successfly completed our show schedule in New York City at the winery on the 16th, which is a Saturday.
Yeah, of course. You can still buy a live stream for that as well.
You certainly can.
Get
on
our website.
Get onto the twomics.co.uk and you too can be part of that fantastic experience.
Yes. You two aren't going to be there, though, are they?
No.
Not as far as we know.
No, as far as we know.
Well, we will be talking to their producer later in the week.
We will, yes.
Grant says this, would Porky have preferred to play in the Everton team that won the league in 1970 or the team that won in 85 and 87?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, 70, of course, you had Ball, Kendall and Harvey. In the 85 team, you had Peter Reid, Trevor Stephen, Paul Bracewell, terrific midfield, Andy Gray. I'd like to have played in both.
Yeah, OK. Well, you can't. You have to choose one.
In that case, I would have to choose the 85-87 one because they were more successful. Okay. They won it twice.
Last final question, this one from Peter. Heading to Southampton in 2 weeks for a Beano. Any suggestions for where to go?
Southampton, go to...
You slagged off Southampton last time.
No, I don't slag off any town at all. There's a place not very far from actually Southampton Football Club. There's a place called Oxford Street, OK, which is a street about, I would say, a mile or two walk from Southampton's ground, St Mary's, and that's where all the people in the know go after the game, and it is full of lovely wine bars and places like that, so I'd head for there.
As a sort of a waterside plaza.
Well, it's not waterside actually. If you want a waterside, you've got Admiral's Quarter, which is a nice development of ritzy apartments down on the edge of the cruise line area,
OK.
Yeah.
We've got a nasty response from somebody in Sunderland called Andy, who says, we don't want you in Sunderland, you fat ginger oaf.
Oh, that's
Feel
nice.
free to align yourself to Newcastle.
Yeah, OK. Well, that's right. I was only giving an answer to a question, pal. Don't need to get upset about it,
Yeah, don't take it too seriously.
No.
Obviously, Everton will be playing Sunderland at some point in the future, though, won't they?
Well, I don't
know. Are they playing in the Cup?
Well, hang on. Yes, we are. We're playing them in the
Simon
Cup.
Grayson.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Simon
the
Grayson
Carabao Cup now, isn't it?
That's right. The Caribou.
Is it at Sunderland?
It's at Goodison.
Oh, it's at Goodison.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you better watch out for that one.
Yeah.
That was Ask Porky. This is talkSPORT.
OK, folks, this is the Two Mics, of course. We're on talkSPORT. We are with Wicks. Now, Wicks have lowered the price on Blue Circle general purpose cement. Get 25 kilograms for just £3.79 each when you buy 3 or more.
Very, very true. Quite a few people doing you up as a kind of Star Wars character.
Why?
Well, because I mentioned to you that, you know, you're my only hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a line from Star Wars, which you probably have never seen.
No,
right?
I haven't, no.
So you don't know that that's the line from Princess Leia? When she says, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
No, I haven't seen that line.
How can you not have seen it?
Well, I've seen bits of it over the years, but never the whole thing. You know what I mean?
All right.
Yes.
I've seen some very good tweets here about your weird behaviour on the train as well, but I can't find it at the moment. I'll have to come back to
There's
that.
one here from Gary. He says, perhaps the train weirdo that Porky encountered thought it would be safety in numbers next to the plank in case a proper weirdo suddenly turned up.
That's entirely correct. Yeah, that's not a bad summation of events. And here's one. Oh, here's one from Matthias. He says, Parry the pub killer, doing economic damage to them by sitting alone on a table for 4. Parry kills off the pub business.
Well, I wouldn't mind. You see, I think that tables should be rented out by the hour in pubs. I've always had this view.
Why should you have to pay for a table?
No, I'm telling you, people come in there, right, and I've seen them come into pubs that I sometimes use. They bring their laptop, right, and they sit at a table at the back and they buy 1 pint of beer, and over the next hour and 20 minutes they're tapping away on their laptop and they're using it as an office. Yeah. That's what they're basically using a pub as, right?
They're still spending money in there.
They're not. They're spending on 1 pint, which costs about £4 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I've said to, I've been to see pub managers before and said, you should rent these tables out by the hour, because then if you said, yes, the drink's this, but the table's this, what do you mean? Well, the table's £5 an hour.
Oh. I'd walk straight out.
No, I wouldn't. There should be a minimum spend in a pub of £10. Otherwise, if you're only going there to buy 1 pint for £4, then you pay £5 for the hire of the table as well.
What if you want it for 2 hours? Is that £10?
No, well, it depends how much you drink, because there's a minimum spend on that table.
You're encouraging people to get completely bladderated.
No, I'm encouraging
Otherwise,
people...
don't come in here and have 1 drink. That's outrageous. Why don't you just get drunk?
I'm encouraging people to support businesses, which are a vital commercial part of our way of life.
Really?
Now, talking about that, by the way, very strange quote from young Max on The Breakfast Show this morning, OK?
Oh, yeah.
I heard him
Max
say...
Rushton.
Max Rushton,
back at 6 a.m. tomorrow.
Our colleague Max Rushton, back at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I heard him say to Ray Parlour, actually,
That's
and
right.
Ray, of course, is a great old mate as well.
Yes.
He said, well, of course, Ray, life is ultimately about finding happiness.
What?
Life is ultimately about finding happiness.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Well, that's a daft quote.
Why? Well, it's not about finding misery, is it?
Well, life is about trying to avoid misery, but never ultimately finding happiness is what most people encounter.
I think most people would like to be happy.
Yes, they would, but they're not.
But many people are actually.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
No, most people are not.
How do you know that?
I know that.
No, you don't.
I know that.
Life because you're not happy.
Life is
nobody else is.
Life's a very difficult element to get through, and
No,
I would say
it's not.
If I had to complete this quote from Max, I'd say life is ultimately about staying alive. That's what it's all about, and that means putting a roof over your head, finding food for you and your family, making sure.
Well, not in your case.
Making sure that you have, a reasonable income and to be able to enjoy some parts of life.
Yeah. So what you're talking about getting wealthy, having money.
Well, being wealthy is better than being poor.
Yeah, it is. But doesn't that not make you happy?
Well,
having money.
Well, no,
make you happy?
No. It makes me happy on a daily basis, but I realise when I go to bed at night, I've got to start again tomorrow to make sure that nobody steals my wealth. Right? I don't know what you're laughing at.
Well,
people will
steal it.
Well, people,
you're like one of these creatures from the medieval times.
What do you mean?
Who's superstitious, right? You don't believe in anything futuristic. You don't think we should make progress in any way.
Yes.
You don't like electric cars. You're worried that people are going to steal what you've got.
Well, they do.
You should actually be living like a sort of, like a hermit in the woods. That's what you should be living like.
You know that
pretending that you don't have anything.
There is only a certain amount of wealth in the world, and everybody wants a bit of it.
You've got quite a lot of it.
So people will go around trying to acquire other people's wealth, and they can do that through business, by offering a service and saying, I will do this for you if you give me that amount of money. Or villains will go around robbing banks to take other people's money.
Or taking money with threats.
With threats and all that, blackmail and all
Menaces.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some people just take a chance in life and go and buy a lottery ticket, and they acquire other people's wealth through that sort of thing. You've got to make your mind up how you want to do it in life. And once you've done it, you've got to protect it.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, so you realise you are talking quite a lot about money here. But we haven't got time now to talk about anything else. However, what we have got time to do quickly is a couple of predictions. You did some yesterday. Yeah. You didn't get one right, by the way. You got a few results.
Did you? And did you?
No, I didn't either.
Right.
But I only did 3.
Yeah.
You did the whole lot last night. But we both got the results reasonably correct.
Right.
But we
both got Scotland victories.
Scotland victories.
Both got Slovenia victories.
No, what?
Slovenia 4, Lithuania 0.
Yeah, you got that one right. What you didn't get right was Montenegro, Romania, because you suddenly, like a Pavlov's dog, went for an away win there, because I said you hadn't done it yet, and you got, as I did, the England-Slovakia result wrong, because we both thought it would be a draw.
Yeah, I said it could be a 2-2 draw,
exactly.
Which it very nearly was, by the way.
I put out when it was 1-1. This is the score I predicted.
That's right.
And all these planks on Twitter went, well, you're not supposed to predict the score while it's during the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, well, don't you realise what Twitter is? Exactly. Anyway, tonight, Moldova against Wales, live on talkSPORT 2, 7:45 kick-off. What do you think?
I think that's going to be Moldova 1, Wales 2.
Yes, I quite like that score. Republic of Ireland, Serbia, which is the other nation that we're interested in.
Yeah, well, they had a little bit of a hiccup, didn't they, Ireland?
Terrible performance the other day, didn't they?
A bit of a hiccup. So
Serbia might not be a bad team.
Serbia not a bad team. I'm going to go for 2-2.
Are you? I'm going to go for 1-1 there,
okay.
I think. And possibly... I'll go 3-1 Wales on the Moldova game.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if there's any other sort of fascinating games going on. Turkey-Croatia might be quite interesting.
Turkey-Croatia could be interesting. Macedonia, Albania. Now that's
that could be tricky. What was the game? Was it a Macedonia Albania game where they had the somebody sent a drone in? Do you remember?
Yes, I think it was.
And it was flying a flag, which upset everybody.
Yeah, that's
and it was
right.
A riot.
Yeah, I think it could have been. I'm not certain about that. I can't say that for sure. But Italy, Israel. You see, that's an interesting game.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, obviously, we'll be back tomorrow at around about 10 o'clock. And every day we give away £100 worth of Wix vouchers. Today, the winner is Ray from Stoke.
Yes.
He was one of the many people who called in to say he'd stopped watching England games because of Wembley.
That's right.
Because everybody agreed with me this morning, strangely enough.
Yeah.
This is talkSPORT.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics.